I can't do a thematic analysis on Talladega Nights, but like I'll turn that on, like it's fun, but it's like
Well,
it keeps you coming back.
in a
There's
character
so many
like
movies that don't.
Rancho or Virus or Pia or Raju, they fit into Talladega Nights in turn the comedy it's trying to tell there. That's what I'm saying. It's like
That's
you
the
could almost
craziest
drop.
sentence I've heard all year.
It is.
Welcome back to Cinema Pursuit, where in the chase of cinema, we talk about the movies that we love. Today, we are here with a birthday movie choice, technically, for me. It is a 2009 movie directed by Rajkumar Hirani, one of the biggest movies of all time in Bollywood, Three Idiots. First thing I want to do is give a heavy, heavy trigger warning for this movie. For the problem, it's not a problem. One of the great things about this movie is that it delves into extremely mature topics, and one of those topics happens to be suicide. So if you haven't seen the movie, I'd recommend watching it always. But this movie talks about suicide. It delves into it, and it might be one of the best movies to talk about that very serious topic. So Zach, what were your thoughts about this movie? Because this is your first Hindi movie. This is your first Bollywood movie, right? Just meaning that I'm a
Yeah.
bad friend for
Well, yeah.
15 years.
Well, I think you've informed me before RRR was not a Bollywood movie, right?
Yeah, no, that's Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's still cool.
So so then this is definitely my first Bollywood movie, which you're right, is almost a more mark on you than it is on me, man. Come on, how long have we been friends? This is the
Yeah, I know.
first one you finally made me say no,
But I've been
I'm just
telling you
kidding.
about
But
this one.
no, you have. This is one that's come up before. And also, like Vikash said, when we did the birthday movie concept originally earlier this year, this was his, and then life got in the way and we had to like try to get a few other movies done and we kept pushing it back and we finally get a chance to do it at
And this is
this
our
is now
season
Dece-
two,
this
episode one. This is our first
is
2025
it
movie.
counting as next one?
Yeah.
Okay, I was about to say it's December 29th, so we technically got it done this year, even though it's
Yeah,
far
we
past
got
your
it this
birthday.
year. So, I mean,
But you know what? Wait, no, was this year No, last year was Oppenheimer.
last year
Never
was
mind. I was
Oppenheimer.
gonna say we did Barbenheimer for your birthday, but that was last year.
Last year.
Did we watch a movie for your birthday this year?
I don't even remember what I did for
Or
my
was it, I
birthday.
guess this was supposed to be the
You know what's
one. So
funny?
yeah, it just didn't
2020,
happen.
2022, I watched, I think it was Gray Man came out on Netflix. I worked all day. I came home. I watched Gray Man and I was so mad because I was like, y'all
Yeah.
really put Ryan Gosling in this movie? Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, at
But
this
Three
point I don't
Idiots.
even see new movies for my birthday. But
Oh, I mean, I'm
anyways,
lucky. I got that birthday date. So, it's awesome.
you have a good release date.
Yeah.
Mine's always like a Marvel movie, and that was fun back in the day. Now it's like, I don't want to see
I'm getting
Thor 5.
pretty much Superman next year. The year after that,
Oh
it's going to
yeah.
be Nolan's movie. Like,
Oh,
as
so
good as
you're
it
good.
gets.
Yeah. So with this movie, this is going to definitely be a pod where I'm asking Vikash more questions than I am giving insight. This is the first time I've seen this movie, like we alluded to. This is the first true Bollywood movie that I've seen, and it's definitely a different experience than watching a Hollywood movie. I think that's easy to say. I think there's the way that they formulate their films. I'm not an expert, obviously, on any of this, but the way they create their films, there's a level of earnestness in this film that Three Idiots that I really enjoy. That reminded me of like a early Spielbergian film, a Zemeckis film. It reminds me of that earnest type filmmaking that was pretty prevalent in the '90s in Hollywood. And obviously there was the Fincher types as well at that time, but that specific '80s, '90s Spielbergian Zemeckis like earnestness is what this reminded me of.
Like I told you, Spielberg has seen this movie 3 times. Or 3 times. I'm talking about like maybe 10 years ago when he talked about it. He loves this movie.
Yeah,
And if Spielberg says he loves your movie, it's like Del Toro on Twitter. If he says watch a movie, it gets added to a list. People have a letterbox list of movies recommended by Guillermo del Toro.
it makes
Same
sense,
thing for
right? Like
Spielberg.
this would be a Spielberg movie that he likes. Like this is everything that he tries to accomplish in this movie. There's,
Godzilla
you
minus
know,
one was another one.
there's just he really enjoys earnest emotion in his
Yeah.
movies, and also things like friendship and things like overcoming odds and maybe even being like the odd one out. Like these are themes that pop up in a lot of his movies. So it's it just goes to show how Spielberg also is a purveyor of just all types of cinema, international cinema. He has his mind open to everything, which is unsurprising.
I will say, like I told you, the people who produced this, like Reliance, they produce his movies also. So like if you go
Yeah.
back and watch Bridge of Spies, you'll see their logo in there. Probably in West Side Story also. So it's like he knows these people too on top of that. And it's not like I don't know if he knows Rajkumar Hirani, the director, but he definitely knows, some sort of, somebody in the process of, making these movies. But I'm gonna go into my memories for this movie because you're asking me like when did I watch this movie for the first time? I could not remember for the life of me when I watched it for the first time. I think it was, that 2009, 2010 era because I have
Just
to get the
when it
DVD.
released.
Yeah, like we
Yeah.
never like growing up, put it this way, I've never talked about it. When it comes to all Hindi movies, I think I've seen in my whole lifetime, I've seen maybe three Hindi movies. Yeah, about three in the theater. I saw maybe a couple when I was a kid because they'd have them here in Savannah. And then I saw a few in India. And then over the years, I might go see a couple in the theater, but very rare, maybe 10 max.
Which is not always a common to have it
Uh,
released in the theater. We're fortunate that the theater near us will show
oh,
Hindi movies
see,
sometimes, but
oh no,
it's
not
rare.
not sometime, all the time. If there's a movie coming out, we have it now because we have a pretty big Indian population where we live, South Asian population, to the point where no matter what movie it is, people will go see it. I tell Zach about this all the time that movie going is still very much a part of the culture when it comes to Indians and South Asians to this day. And maybe if it's not the young people, it's definitely, people my age or older, they definitely still go to the movies. It's just I watch American movies. That's all it is. And it's no, I wouldn't say it's any like rap on Indian cinema. It's just I prefer to have a certain type of story, a certain type of action, and certain type of everything. And it's rarer that we get it now with Bollywood. And this is a time, it's been 15 years almost exactly that we're like recording this 2 days after the 15th anniversary for Three Idiots. And Rajkumar Hirani is like one guy who always delivers when it comes to the story and the emotions. This is not his first like hit, Zach. This is his third hit. And he's made, I think, at least he's made like 3 or 4 other movies after this. His first like 4 movies, they're my favorites, and this is one of them. And this one is, like I told you, at the time it broke all the records. Biggest movie in Bollywood, like box office wise, like this was the highest grossing movie in India. And imagine that for here. I don't think
Yeah.
it's like it's a easy thing to say that this type of movie would be the highest grossing movie that you have. And I would hope that
Except
these are the
for
stories.
one exception,
What, Forrest Gump?
that you brought up. Yeah,
Yeah.
this is one you compare it to Forrest Gump pretty frequently,
Yeah.
and that would be the American comparison for sure in terms of box office as well,
He's
and just long life.
yeah.
I'm sure that you told me this had a very long life with DVD sales and all that stuff
It
too.
still has, I mean, like, see, that's the thing. When it comes to Indian movies, there's always going to be a life if the movie's good to some extent. And if you go on YouTube and just type in Three Idiots, you will see the actual movie for rent, and then you'll see like 5 or 6 different copies of the movie just put on YouTube
Hmm.
because people watch this movie that much and they love it that much. And you have compilations of the best scenes. It's got 50 million views, that sort of thing.
Okay. Vikash, one of the things I wanted to ask you about is what's the difference between a movie like this, a Bollywood movie, and some of the other India movies that are made in the Indian region, like Bollywood or Tollywood movies?
Essentially, Bollywood is like legitimately Hollywood mainstream media. Like if you talk, but that's the thing. It's like it's very much just that. It's rare that you get a movie like this that's talking about deep issues and it's funny. It's got a lot of layers to it. Not that I mean, some Bollywood movies is very rare, in my opinion, nowadays that you see those movies. It just depends on who's making them because that's like your popcorn munching. I wouldn't compare it to Marvel because it's bigger than Marvel has ever been. Because this is what's been going on for the last like almost 100, not 100, let's say 80 years. And you have every other region of India. I'm Gujarati. You have movies from Gujarat. You have Malayalam movies. You have Telugu movies. You have movies from, there's Satyajit Ray, which all the cinephiles are gonna know him. The Uppu trilogy, like all of his movies are fantastic, and it's something where people know him. It's the guy that Wes Anderson rips off the most. You know
So
me, I get pressed about that, but
specifically though,
what
why is it regionalized differently in India?
language?
Okay, so it's that because I know we have Hollywood, that's our thing.
Yeah,
You know that.
but see, that's the
So,
thing.
but
It's
it's
like, put it this
language
way.
is why there's different ones, is what you're saying? Okay.
Yeah. So, first thing for anybody to know, if you don't know already, there's more English speaking people in India than there are in America. There's 2 billion people there. And most of us learn English there. I mean, I was born and raised in America, and, me talking about India is already contentious as it is, because people they don't like us talking about India. But when it comes to the Indian movies, yes, it very much is language. And even though we have all these different languages, Hindi is the one that people listen to the most and talk to the most, meaning music and movies. So people from like Pakistan, if they speak Urdu, they watch Hindi movies, they watch Bollywood movies. People in the Middle East, they watch Bollywood movies. A lot of people across the world watch Bollywood movies. I'm going to send you videos of people everywhere from Nigeria to America to South America. Like people love Bollywood movies specifically, and it's like everything else is harder to find and it gets watched less. Even though you talk about like Tollywood, Telugu movies, you've seen RR. He's made, Bahubali. He's made a lot of movies. That director, S.S. Rajmouli, and they're fantastic, big popcorn movies. But there's people like Shyam Benegal. I told you he just passed away at the age of 90, and you watch all of his movies. You watch the movies that he talks about, and it's a completely different side of Bollywood. It's a different side of like Hindi cinema, and so many movies being made in India. Period. Where we just had a All We Imagine Is Light that just came out. I saw it at the festival, and that's a movie that's set in Mumbai, but there's like 5 different languages in that movie because that's what Mumbai, like as a city, it essentially is New York, where it's like if you had New York here, like in America, we all speak English, but Mumbai, everybody speaks a different language, but everyone speaks Hindi too.
Let me ask
That's the
this.
thing.
Is there a preference given towards certain studios systems in India?
Yes.
Which one?
The preference is to Bollywood.
Okay.
Everyone, like, I wouldn't call it the gold standard, but it is the populist standard.
Okay.
That's what everyone watches. That's what everyone is always looking towards.
Okay.
And there's a problem within Bollywood itself. There's many different problems within Bollywood, which I'm not going to get into because it could be anything from the nepotism to the fair skinness, aspect of it, or just the stories that they tell. Because sometimes they're not, the problem with Bollywood is that they're not telling bold stories. And Rajkumar Hirani is one of the very rare people, in my opinion, that does make those bold stories. It very much same line. Bad idea, great movie. Because if you know how old, though, so the main guy in this movie that plays Rancho, Aamir Khan, one of the biggest actors in India, one of the biggest producers. Do you know how old he is in this movie?
No, how old is he?
Well, you tell me, how old
I
do you
mean,
think he was in this
was
movie?
he in his 30s?
He was 44.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Jeez. I know he looked older, but that is like,
Indian don't
oh,
crack.
yeah. Huh.
So no, he went to the director. He's very
Probably
much
in
like
high
one of
school
us,
student.
and he was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'm in my 40s, and why are you gonna take me in this role?" Like the director essentially threw him one of the lines from the movie where it's like, "You got to take the opportunities that you get. This is not about. It's like this is what's come to you.
Oh, so it's
So
okay when he
take it."
does it in this, but when Ben Platt does it in Dear Evan Hansen, it's a problem.
It's bad. But who's better? You tell me.
Ben
Who's
Platt.
telling
No,
me? I
I'm
think
kidding, I'm
Amir Khan
kidding.
has a
Amir
beat.
Khan's awesome in this, and he actually, I mean, we'll get into it later, but his performance in this is actually the heart and soul of the movie. Like, he really, without him performing, giving that performance, this movie probably doesn't work as well.
This movie, it is popular. It is still a movie that stays with the culture because it's about questioning the system. You know me. That's always been my default. And it doesn't matter what system you're in, whether it's educational system, a healthcare system, a government system, a social system. I think this movie, you can tell me, what do you think? I think it is about questioning it. If the system is not working,
I
we have to do something about
I
it.
think actually, kinda secretly, this is more of a coming of age movie than any of that. Like, it is a questioning the
It
system
is.
movie, but it also is a coming of age movies for these 3 young men, or supposed to be young men in the movie. It's trying to come into their own, figure out what actually gets them what they wanna do in life. That's the whole point, is them trying to find their passion while also trying to deal with the social pressures of success and, Indian society. So that is
But
but
I
it
think
turns into a
that's
coming
why I
of
have to
age
ask
movie
you.
because of that.
It is a coming of age movie, but I have to ask you, it's like, what do you think about all the cultural like topics of like parental or societal issue or like societal pressures, school pressures? We might not have the same level of school pressures, but I think is it for you because this is your first time watching this? Is it relatable to some extent? Because I think anytime you watch foreign cinema of any sort, you have to practice empathy, and some people can't practice it. I'll
Well,
tell you that.
I mean, is it familiar to me? No, because, and this is, I'm going to start making wild generalizations about society, so stay with me. But in American society, of course, individualism is a big part of it. And now a lot of people growing up still
Yeah,
do have those pressures to succeed, but there's less specific pressure in American culture to succeed a certain way. There's less pressure to succeed as a doctor or a lawyer, or as a lawyer wasn't even an option here. As doctor if you're a woman, engineer if you're a man, right? And I'm sure that's reflective of something in Indian society that you're more aware of than me. But you're right. So I can't relate to it on a personal level, but I do understand it on the idea of trying to put, a square box in a round hole. I
yeah,
understand the
no,
idea of,
exactly.
trying to find your, going one way because of societal pressures. And, for a lot of Americans, that might just be going to college because of pressure and then realizing it's not for you. It might not just, it's like almost the opposite of some of what's going on here. All that to say is I understand the pressure aspect of it, but I also can't relate to it. But that doesn't mean
Yeah,
I don't enjoy the movie.
empathize
I
with
don't
it, yeah,
empathize like I can do that, but I also understand like they're tackling cultural issues that are present in their culture.
yeah. And it's done very well. We watch Parasite, right? It's doing the same thing, but it's talking a lot more, about like hierarchy of social
Yeah.
class, right? This one doesn't even dive into that because to be able to even get to the point where you have the ability to go to school and be able to get into engineering college or anything like that, it is insanely hard. I was telling Zach, they throw it out in the movie that it's 200 kids who got accepted out of 400,000, and that is 0.0005% of kids
Are
who got
are
it
colleges in India that competitive?
that competitive.
Oh.
And it's like if you can't get into something like that, then you go to smaller places. Like in India, like where my people are from, there's a literally a whole place called Vidyanagar, meaning Vidya meaning knowledge and the Nagar meaning place. So literally knowledge place. And there's nothing but college kids there. And it's literally they have colleges there for kids to go. And if you can't get into a big college like a engineering college in like Mumbai, then you go there, it's not bad, but it's essentially I let's call it Armstrong. It's not bad, but it's no, it's not bad, It
Yeah.
could be better, essentially. And that's the thing. My problem it very much is that this movie it's about knowledge. I think this movie it's about coming of age, but it's also about curiosity. And I I ascribe to the same Rancho vibe where it's like I have the same love of learning, like I've always been a sponge for knowledge, and I feel like if you have to search for something, I feel like you need to keep learning. You need to search for knowledge, not for somebody else, but just for yourself of like improving yourself or you're striving to develop yourself, self-development, whatever you're trying to do. You should always stay curious, and that curiosity might change your perspectives. And it's like it's a use it or lose it thing in my
You
opinion.
know,
And this movie always reminds me of that.
in some ways, the themes you're talking about, I'm trying to think of comparisons here. It reminds me a bit of Dead Poet Society in a way of the idea of, pressure and expectations versus passion. And that's what a lot of this
Yeah.
movie dives into is that the pressure of expectations, it seems like from what the movie's saying is that not only do you have to succeed for your future, but also for your family's future to take care of your family. Raju comes from a very poor family, they show a few times, and they're counting on him to become an engineer for the sake of their family. And same thing for
Yeah.
Farhan's family. They talk about all the sacrifices they made so he could go to engineering school and become an engineer. And that puts an extra level of pressure onto it to where failure isn't even just their failure, it's their family's failure, it's their lineage's failure.
It's to a point where it's like failure is not an option.
Yeah.
And it's like Yeah, we see a lot of smart Indian people out here, especially in America, because the only reason they come here is because they want smart people to come here. But it's 2 billion people there, and the average IQ there is lower than most places in the world, you know? And I will say it myself personally that I'm not a doctor, I'm not an engineer. I could have been, but I am not as smart as some of these people. I know that for a fact. And it is what it is, but it's like I've recognized that fact and I know that there are people there who have different opportunities because they're smarter to get out of the poverty levels that they're at in India. And everyone's talking about it. They all come from their villages, from their gams that some of these places, Zach, to like maybe not even 10 years ago might still have dirt roads. Some of the places still have dirt roads. You will have nice houses, like 3-story houses next to literal metal roof slum places. And I don't mean that as like a derogatory thing to anyone who lives in those places. It's a fact of life. And I see it. I'm literally going to see it within the next 2 weeks again.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm always grateful. This movie, it tackles all, it is coming of age, but it's also got the societal pressures. It's got a lot of, political, like social themes in there. It One thing about Bollywood movies is this, that it'll churn a lot in there. If it's actually good, if it actually has a chance to, it'll mix a lot of things in there. Like I told you, you can't have a Bollywood movie for the most part without a romance plot, right? And how long it took, like 30 minutes to get into it, right? But they threw it in there, right?
Well, last thing I do want to say that, and I think this goes with foreign films in general, is that there will be, even though a lot of times the themes of the movie is talking about something that is specific to that culture, there are still a lot of themes that are universal, and again,
Yeah,
the theme of this movie is pressure and what the negative effects of societal, familiar, internal pressure can do to somebody, and how as a society we need to allow people to be in situations where they're not under that sort of pressure, where they're allowed to thrive without the pressure of and again, your whole family's livelihood is banking on it, is an Indian specific cultural pressure, but
it's
pressure is
not
still
even
something all audience people or audience members
it's not
can
even
relate to.
I'd argue it's maybe even any immigrants where
Yeah,
it's like if you have the opportunity, and it is an opportunity to come to America. I tell people all the time, I'm like, as bad as you might think things are in America, it is much worse in other countries. Like you went to Greece, right?
yeah.
And you tell me, is it like you have different things? You have so many luxuries here in America where even in Europe you can't even find them, right?
Yeah, no, that's true. I definitely enjoyed being in Greece, but yeah, one of the things that stood out to me is that there's certain conveniences that and I was like in Athens, Greece. This is like a good part of Greece, but there's a lot of conveniences that I'm used to here that weren't available there. And yeah, everything's cheaper there, but then also you got to consider the fact that the wages are way, way less there too. So,
Yeah.
to
And same
me,
thing in India. And I will talk
yeah,
about India this whole pod, but it doesn't mean that I don't love that country. I don't
yeah,
love that place. That is the place I'm from. I always say that I'm Indian American because I get put in the middle of the road. I'm maybe not too much Indian. I might not be too much American, but I love both of these places. These are, it's inseparable to my like identity as a person,
yeah,
these places. So it's like I see everything, great about both places and I see everything bad about both places. And, some people, talking about this stuff sometimes can get racy for people, even though it's just,
yeah,
it's just a, conversation of life, because I've seen some things where it's like, gonna make you cry. I ain't
yeah.
gonna lie. But let's get off of all that serious stuff and get into some juice. Action is the juice. Three Idiots has the juice. This movie, like I told you, this is tech. We did School Rock. That's our first comedy. This is our next comedy,
You're
and
actually
this is a different
acknowledging
sort of
School
comedy.
Rock's a comedy. Thank you.
Yes,
We
I
had this
am. We
discussion
talking about this
yesterday.
yesterday because I was like, I never put it as a comedy. I love the movie, and I'm just like, it's kind of a musical, kind of like a kid's story, but yeah, it is a comedy. And this is they said comedy drama on YouTube. Three Idiots is also a comedy drama. And I prefer this a whole lot more than whatever the regular stuff. Because I think if you have a drama that has comedy, it's closer to life than an actual drama, in my opinion, because life is not, just always just drama, drama, drama. There's always comedy in there, at least, for us, because, you know, like this movie does, or like the juice of this movie, it'll be very serious and then someone's cracking jokes because that's what happens. So throw to your first action of the juice scene.
Sure. I mean, honestly, it's the climax of the movie. It's the birth scene. It's when
Yeah, that's mine too.
okay, yeah, it's when Pia's it's her sister, right? Is it
Yeah,
yeah.
her sister Mona.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pia's sister, she is, giving birth, and there's a flood going on, a lot of rain. They're not able to get to the hospital, and all these engineering students have to run in and try to, remotely, while Pia's in the hospital trying to give instructions. They're trying to figure out how to make the little suction tube to get the baby out. They're trying to get the power back on. They're trying to, deliver the baby, cut the umbilical cord, and it really is where the movie uses all of its powers to do a level of tension, a level of engineer. I can't think of the right word.
Ingenuity.
Ingenuity, yeah, a lot of ingenuity, a lot of like tense, just worry of what's going to
Yeah.
happen to the baby, what's going to happen to the mom, but also that kind of excitement of these engineers putting their knowledge to practical use and getting to see it's almost like, I hate to use this comparison, but if like Rancho is almost like a superhero in this movie, this is him finally getting to use all of his powers.
But
The-
he is a superhero.
yeah, I mean,
He's a superhero in the
they
sense of
make him
like,
yeah, a brilliant,
yeah, he's a savant.
yeah, savant.
Like,
And this is him getting to use the height of his powers finally in the movie. And so it combined, and it takes all these things from the movie and puts them together in this very tense scene where, watching it for the first time, I can tell you I had no idea what was going to happen. I was
no,
worried
that's
about
what I
it
told
taking
you,
a
right?
darker, turn, and it kind of starts to go that way. And
You didn't expect that to happen at all, right?
no,
With a baby,
no.
like not
And
one
then
bit.
the payoff, the all is well payoff is, like, incredible. It worked on me. It got me. Even if it's a little cheesy, it works,
But that's the thing.
you know?
It's the make or break,
Yeah.
because I was like, "This is the moment." I'm like, "I already know it's either he likes the movie or he
Yeah.
doesn't like the movie. This is the scene." Because there's a movie there, it's an older Indian movie. It's called Amr, Akbar, and Anthony. So it's three brothers, and when they're kids, they're supposed to be brothers, and then somehow their dad gets arrested, and then they all three of them. This is the real movie. They all three of them end up in different like orphanages. One of them becomes a Christian, one of them becomes a Muslim, and one of them becomes a Hindu. Right,
None of them
and
became
then
Jews.
and there are Jews in India, but bro, okay. So like maybe like an hour later, right? They grow up, 30 years later, and this random woman gets into some sort of accident, and they all three of them give blood to the mom. Which they don't know it's their mom, but they give blood, they donate blood to their mom, and then they realized all three of them were brothers. And my dad and me, we talk about this a lot, this scene. We're like, why is this gonna work? It makes no sense. The lead of the movie, he's like one of the biggest actors of all time. He's like, how is this gonna work? And the director was like, hold my beer, like just trust me. And when that movie came out, people were crying in the theater. I was crying watching this scene in this movie, right? Because it's like this is one of those like swing for the fences, like it's either gonna work or not gonna work. But Bollywood is good about making those swings, and this one works so
Well,
well,
that's
man.
part of it, is that the earnestness. This is where it really
100%.
pays off. When you do this scene honestly was ridiculous. It's a ridiculous scene,
It
but
is.
it
Yes,
works
yes.
because no
100%.
one's like trying to break the fourth wall or trying to make a joke of it. Everybody's committed to it. It's like if it's a real thing, and we keep
Yeah.
bringing back to this idea of this being like Indian Forrest Gump in a way, not in terms of the plot, but in terms of the
The
feel of the
vibe.
story. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another movie where a lot of him running across the country, and never stop running in Forrest Gump is ridiculous, but it's a good sequence because they actually commit to the ridiculousness of it and tackle it on like it's real in the world of the film. And that's exactly what they do with the birth scene. It's ridiculous, but it's earnest, and it pays off in the best of ways with the callback as well. And I mean, what
And the
else were your
payoff.
thoughts on it? Like, when you watch
It's
this, what do you think?
I mean, the payoff also is virus, right?
Yeah.
That it's my reminder. I tell you this, like we talk about it all the time, that I think people have the potential for change. And I don't think it's 10%. I think people have the power to change very fundamental things about themselves. if given the chance. And this movie talks about it where it's like those changes can happen, but it's like it takes a lot of love and perseverance to get
Do
there.
you think Virus gets, like, mistakenly attributed to being, like, a positive figure, like, in his quotes earlier in the movie, how he has all those,
No,
quotes about, like,
no,
having pressure and having I was just wondering, how people, like, take stupid, like, the Joker quotes and
no.
use it as their inspiration, like, in America? I was just wondering if
Maybe,
people I was
honestly,
just wondering, do you think people
maybe.
take his early stuff and it's like, yeah, like, the people who have that kind of toxic mindset and are just like, "Yeah, he's right, like, rice life is a race," like, it's like Ricky Bobby, if you ain't first, you last,
If you
you
ain't
know?
finished, you last. But that's the thing, that like the mindset that he has,
Yeah.
you're saying maybe do people take it? But that's the norm.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That if you're going, people talk about tiger moms here. This sort of energy is kind of the norm for
Well,
some people. And like you said, it's about that pressure.
the reason I asked because when I was doing research on the movie, one thing I was doing is looking up quotes, and one of the websites I found was like, here's my favorite quotes from the movie as an educator, and a bunch of the quotes were his quotes earlier
Oh
in the
my
movie,
god.
and
Oh
I was
my
like,
god. As an
"What
educator.
what are you doing? This is you should be like as an educator, yeah,
No.
you should be figuring
As an
out like this
educator,
isn't
it's
good."
the whole thing with the robot, right? What's the
Yeah.
definition of a robot, right?
Yeah.
That is like, yeah, you have a definition that's in a what do you call it?
In a
The
textbook.
definition of robot that's in a textbook, but that's not the point, right?
Yeah.
It's about like a machine is something that's going to make your life easier. That's why he talks about the zippers.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. When you have good comedy, they have visual gags, right?
Yeah.
And the whole visual gag of them just like doing the whole zipper thing is hilarious.
Yeah.
But it's like those little moments they sell the bigger ones, and it's like you get to see. That's one of the first scenes where you get to see what who Rancho is. Is
Yeah.
that like it's a difference of perspective of like you're trying to teach this one thing, but you're not trying to cultivate curiosity for learning.
Yeah.
And this movie oddly is a teacher movie, is it not?
No, it is.
Because
It's a teacher movie,
because Rancho spends the whole time of the movie.
but
One of his powers is teaching, trying to teach everybody
yeah.
the difference of what happens. And this director, one of his first movies, MBBS Munabai, which is like a guy. This is the little premise. You're gonna have to watch this movie with me one day, where there's a gangster who falls in love with a girl, and the only way to love, like to get married to her, he has to become a doctor. And the doctor, like the whatever, the principal of the doctor college, is the same guy who plays Virus,
Huh.
Boman Irani,
Yeah.
and completely different role, but just as hilarious. And that movie is, I think that movie might be funnier, and it might hit the emotions even harder than this one. If surprisingly, that's why we'll talk about it.
Yeah. No, I don't have much else to say on this scene, but I will just say that is I don't know what my hierarchy of scenes in movies are, but that's somewhere on my list. Like in terms of my favorite scenes in a movie, like that, it's memorable and it really does. It
Yeah,
hits all four quadrants of like I said, tension, excitement, fear, and relief. Like it hits
and it
everything.
delivers. Yeah,
Yeah,
it hits everything, and that's the thing. Like you're like when you have movies like this, you're moving up to those moments, and this movie never in the pedal's always on. And like I told you, when we got an hour in, I was like, it's been an hour?
yeah,
Like the pacing for this movie, even though you're intercutting two different timelines, is always fantastic with this movie. And then when you get to the back end of the movie where there's a lot of drama happening, it never feels like you're stopping for anything, but you're always feeling those emotions.
yeah.
And
Starting in media
for me,
res
that's
was
my
a
problem.
really good idea too, because it really you don't
Oh
know
yeah.
where the movie's going to go at first, but it really captures your attention.
Yeah, because it's like, no, that's the thing. One of the biggest rules that you can learn for writing is that what is better than explaining something to the audience is that you should show it,
Yeah,
right? You talk about John Wick. Half of the hype of John Wick for the first movie is just people talking about him. You see the
that's a
reaction
good
of him,
call.
right?
Yeah,
And what's the reaction that they have to Rancho, right? Like, oh, he literally fakes a heart attack to get off the plane to find his buddy, right? Like the dude he runs out of his house without his pants because
yeah,
it's been that so long. And it's like that whole vibe, like the whole tension of just like opening the movie is sets the tone as to who he is. And then I'll talk about the title song. It's one of my favorite songs of all time, honestly, because it captures the like the emotion of like who this person is like, why are they going to go find him? And it's just like going through the hills. It's beautiful. But let's get into production value
Sure.
because this is an Indian movie. How much did I tell you? If in today's standard, if you convert the budget for this movie is like $7 million in American standard, and some of that goes with a different standard of living, I guess. But this movie is great for that amount, and people should look at these movies more and give them respect. And I think for me, sometimes I give a little bit of a handicap to these movies where I'm like, they're working with nothing and they're making great movies still. Like, I can't go and find a 4K of
Yeah.
Three Idiots for a reason because, they're just not doing that sort of thing. But production value, production value, the most impressive parts of this movie, whether it's in front of the movie, is a shot, moment, scene, what moment feels like everything is left on screen for you in this movie,
Well,
in the Three
I
Idiots.
think you're making a good point there. So it's not like this is the best looking movie ever by any standard, but the shots.
The blocking's
Well, that's what I was about to get to. My production value is the blocking, the shot selection decisions, essentially. There's a bunch of times where, again, the movie doesn't have a lot to work with. Like there'll be, when they're traveling to go find Rancho, like they're just going around dirt roads. It's not like it's the most cinematic type environments, but they make some really.
but it is beautiful.
Well, yeah,
I will
and
say
one of the
for
shots that
India,
I really
beautiful.
loved was they did a 2 shot outside of the car while they're looking for Rancho, and both of us commented when we were watching, it's like, "That's a good shot." Like, that is a
Though
fundamentally really just good blocking, and it's a
there's
great shot that tells you a lot.
they're at the river by the bridge.
Mhm.
It's in the third act of the movie, and they're just whatever. One of them or Madhavan's character is like in the back, and then like the other guy's sitting in the front, and they're just like, bro, like what's happening? Like you could feel the emotion of the scene just from the blocking,
Yeah,
and that's
it's
fantastic.
great, and also, there's also the scene of where Virus is beating up his barber for shaving his mustache, and it's next to the and he's slamming his head next to the record player or holding his head there or whatever, and it felt like a shot that would seem like right out of a Scorsese movie with it playing the
And the opera
music.
music is
Yeah, and
playing.
he just has his head like that is like a straight up 90s fantastic type shot, and even the sillier shots in this movies work because of the, comedic nature, so there's some shots like when they're getting shocked. What's his name? Millimeter or centimeter? I can't remember what his name is.
Wait,
Um,
what do you
it's
mean shocked? Are you talking about
from when
the
he's
P thing?
peeing and he gets shocked.
Oh,
Like that's a silly
Mutro
shot.
Visarjan,
Like yeah, that's a really
bro.
silly shot, but it's like really
They animate
funny
they
too.
animate
Yeah,
the what do you call it? The electricity into it
yeah.
too,
It
and I'm just like, "Come
Yeah, and
on."
again, like it's not the best looking movie by any standard, but like it makes really smart decisions about what it's doing, what it wants to show with each shot. And so that is my production value for this. There's a lot of love and craft that went into these decisions.
One of my favorite things about Bollywood movies, from now all the way back to the oldest ones I've seen, is that when it comes to shot selection, when it comes to what they're doing with their shots, it's always
Yeah.
fantastic. And when it comes to older movies, even in America, where it's like you have one setup and you got to make this count. So you'll see where the camera goes. You have one setup, two setup, three setups in one shot, and it feels like you're not wasting a single little ounce of film.
Yeah.
And I've seen the other side of it where it's like lighting. Literally, you will see a light and you will just see the harshest shadows everywhere. You can just tell that they just set up lights and none of it matters. Like people will complain like, "Oh, the lighting is bad." But the lighting is not bad because you don't even care about the lighting because the story is so good.
Yeah.
And there's some movies like even, they have them on Mubi, like, the people like the streaming service that you watch these movies and be like, "Dang, this movie, it looks like they made this for nothing." And it's like one of the best movies I've ever seen. And I find those movies with my dad because there's a lot of Bollywood movies, like older movies, that are just on YouTube now because they just put them out that way. And it's like if you just watch any of them, especially the older ones, you find great framing in them. And my problem with Bollywood nowadays is the opposite, that it's over edited, the framing isn't good, the shot selections aren't great anymore. And it really irks me because
Yeah.
it's like y'all came from such a like when you have nothing to work with, and even if you have a lot of people, you have bare to nothing to work with when it comes to film or anything like that, you make everything count. And it just feels like, they lost the sauce somewhere where it's like they have more money, they have nicer cameras, but just because you have nicer, equipment doesn't mean that you have great cinema.
Yeah.
And that's the same problem that America has right now, right? So it's like it's not just them.
Well, I'd argue that it's even easier than ever to have your films like look good from a just I don't know not even a
Visual
production,
perspective.
just like, yeah, you
Yeah.
it's easier and easier now to make something that you shoot look professional, but
Yeah,
the
yeah, that's
second
the word,
part is not to
professional.
make it only professional, but to make it interesting. Don't make me call back,
Yeah.
Sammy Fableman there. The horizon, if it's at the top, it's interesting. If the horizon's at the bottom, it's interesting. If it's in the middle, it's not interesting.
One of the biggest movies this year is Deadpool and Wolverine, and, you compare the visual work of Deadpool, Wolverine to the other blockbusters, you compare it to Dune Part 2, you compare it to Furiosa, and, people are complaining about the CG in Furiosa. It doesn't matter to me. I think it looks fantastic. But the whole point is that the visual language that George Miller has. I was watching the movie in 2D in IMAX, and there's points in the movie where I'm like jerking my head backwards. I'm like, whoa. I'm like, whoa, what is this shot? And it's like it's not, it's just like he blows your mind with every little thing that he has. And it doesn't matter how much money he has, he's been doing it since the first Mad Max. So
Visual language is right though, because with this movie, like, it's all subtitles for me. And if I ever am paying more attention to the scene than the subtitles and I miss a line, I still understand what's going on because of the visual language of this movie. I still understand what
yeah,
emotions are being communicated. I understand a lot of what even the plot's being communicated just from the actions on screen. But like you're talking about visual language, Deadpool, if it was on mute, I'd have no idea what's going on. I know absolutely no, and I understand it's a different type of movie, but that's just to add
but
to what you're
even
saying.
but I
There's
mean,
the
like you
intentionality
could,
in the language of
yeah,
the visual language of this movie.
you could turn you could turn a George Miller movie into a silent film.
Yeah,
That's the level of
yeah,
work he does. Last night I was when I was not last night, the night before, when I after we watched Three Idiots. So this is the first movie for anybody listening. This is the first movie in like 29 episodes where me and Zach actually sat there and watched it together.
yeah. It's
We've
been
seen a lot of these movies,
well,
but this is the
we
first time
literally
we
just
sat
did
there.
that for Interstellar, Vikash.
Oh yeah, we did Interstellar, bro. That was a theater. This is like the first time at home.
Yeah. No, I
This
get it, and yeah,
whatever.
we haven't watched
Time
a
has been
movie.
flying.
It's funny, yeah, the movies that we've watched last year are basically been ones we haven't potted about, like we did Moonstruck last year, for
Mo
instance, and
Oh, I
it's
forced
almost
Moonstruck, and that movie's
it's almost
fantastic.
part of, like, when he comes over and we wanna watch a movie, it's almost like, "Yeah, we don't wanna work. We wanna watch a movie," That we don't wanna do
Yeah.
work here. We wanna watch something that we're not planning to pot about anytime soon.
Not anytime soon, that's the right
Yeah.
word, because Moonstruck is definitely coming
Yeah,
at
it's on
some
the
point.
list
I
for
was
sure.
like, I fell in love with that movie this year. That might be one of my favorite watches this movie, or like this year. But let me get into production value for me. It is the Shimla scene, so the last scene of the movie where they finally, it's the payoff of the
Yeah,
movie of like the whole myth, the myth of like, which it feels like a myth. They build it up that much. It's like, where is Rancho?
yeah,
Where's Rancho? Where is he? It's not him. That's not actually him. We have to go find him. Here's the actual address he is at. And we get there. They track him down to this school in the middle of nowhere, and Shimla is beautiful. And that's the production value, right? That,
yeah.
yeah, like the beauty of the last scene of
A lot
this
of
movie
wide
is
shots, a
fantastic.
lot of, like, showing of the scenery there. It was
It's like
interesting how they did that.
we get there's a lot of comedy, but
Yeah.
it's like a lot of payoff, right? Like they get to see centimeter, like millimeters turned into centimeter. They get a couple of reunions in there, but that last, whatever, the last place that they get to by the water and the mountains in the back, bro, forget about it. You know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of the backyard scene in Crazy Stupid Love, where it's like, the plot has finally come together, and then it's just, reunion, like, action happening is nothing but like climax. And I think if you go to YouTube, literally it just says climax, like climax scene. It is that scene
Yeah.
where it is wholesome on every level. Like Rancho gets slapped in the face, like he gets slapped in the face, and then he gets like beat up by his best friends and his soon to be wife. And it's like, and then Silencer comes out of nowhere. Chatur, bro, you got, okay. So for anybody who doesn't know, Chatur, this man, Zach, where do you know him from? I told you exactly where you know him from. His name is Omi Vaidya in real life. He is in The Office.
Yeah. You told me that he plays the IT guy. They had 2 different IT guys in the show, but he plays one of the IT guys.
He plays the IT guy where Michael Scott, he literally sees him out the window. He's like, "Who's this guy?" And then
Yeah.
like he's
Yeah,
like
it starts
shutting
getting
off
real
all the
racist.
lights and
Yeah,
like locking
yeah.
the doors. Yeah, 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 that's him. And it's like, oh, y'all don't even realize this dude is
But
he is
one
majorly
one
hilarious in
thing
this
this movie
movie.
does a really good job of is they build them up. They build him up as this almost mythic character for the majority of the movie. So when they finally get back into the present and he's not there, you fill that gap. You feel
For Rancho,
you
yeah.
literally as a viewer feel like something's missing because this character who's been the main character for the whole movie for you is gone. So when they're searching for him, you're like really a part of that search because it feels like the movie's off balance. It feels tilted without him in there. So when they were trying to find him at the end, you're like, yeah, I really want to find him. This guy was really engaging for the whole movie and he's gone now.
You know what it just reminded me of?
What?
The Force Awakens.
Oh Lord. No, you're right. I mean,
But
I
why does
get it.
Force Awakens the end of Force Awakens doesn't work? Because it is for shock value. And this, you get to the end of the movie and you catch up with him. You know what happens. Oh, he's a scientist with 400 patents. He's majorly successful, majorly humble. He's just teaching kids and he's doing what he loves, right? And he's essentially practicing what he was preaching the whole movie to all of his friends and everybody. And he even has the pen from Virus and all that stuff. All the payoff is fantastic. And one of the things that was funny that you brought up, production value wise, was when they're turning on to the road where his school is. You're like, oh, the score didn't have to go this hard.
Oh
And
yeah,
that's the
I
thing
did
about
say
like
that.
when it comes to Bollywood movies, the musical cues are very high,
Yeah.
especially with Bollywood movies. There's a lot of like when it comes to the comedy, when it comes to emotional moments, there's a lot of like, sonic, cues, vocal cues, sound cues that are pushing the emotion. And usually it's like if you watch enough of these, you catch on to what they're trying to do and you just fall in line with it. But when it comes to the musical cues, it's always the harmonizing and that all that stuff. I was talking about it with Gladiator, where it's like you feel an emotional connection. And I will say, for me, it's not just this movie, but every time I hear, especially Bollywood music, especially this sort of music, I feel more of an effect than most music, where it's like the emotional connection is high for me. Where it's like, you know, it stirs something within me where I'm like, yeah, I like this more than a lot of 90% of other stuff.
Yeah.
And it works for me. I think it works for a lot. It literally works for billions of people. And it's something that I would hope that Americans can enjoy too. Because I think everybody can enjoy this stuff. Like I told you, Bollywood goes around the world and there's an effect here that is worth studying because Three Idiots is top class from India. But that being said, one of the titles that we have for our next category, dialogues. It's the first time you watch the dialogues movie, Zach, because literally in the credits, it'll say whatever dialogues by Rajkumar Hirani and the two writers of this movie. Because you have a script, you have a story, and then you have your dialogues. So, what pieces of dialogue affected you the most from Three Idiots?
I actually brought 2 this time, which usually I don't do. So, the more I reflected on this movie after we got done watching it, the more I enjoyed Raju's arc. One of
Oh, it's the best arc.
who's
Yeah,
really
I
the
know.
3rd of the 3 idiots in terms of
But
story
his story
value.
is the most
But
important.
yeah, his
Yeah.
story is so he's the one, who ends up, spoiler, breaking his legs later in the movie trying to, jump out of Virus's office. When he goes to his interview near the end, he says, they're asking him if he can change his attitude to work with them. And he says, "Sir, I have learned to stand up on my feet after having broken both my legs. This attitude has come with great difficulty. No, sir, I can't. You may keep your job and let me keep my attitude." It's such a just great into his arc as this guy who is so scared of failure that he's spending all his day praying and basically bargaining with his God to, give him success, saying, "I'll do this if you just let me pass this test,
But
or if you let me succeed in this exam, I will give you this. I will do this." And
we talk about it a
it's a
lot.
lot of lack of self-confidence and pressure,
Yeah.
and this is him just finally getting past that, having this new perspective after, a near-death experience of, "Oh, my life doesn't need to be this way. I can live my life my way. I can have this positive attitude and this very calm attitude about life because to me, it's not that serious anymore." I love that ending of his arc.
So the culture, not just in India, I think we don't talk about religion much. We're not, we're not diving into this. I'm going to give a lot of facts and I'm not going to elaborate on them. there's a lot of religion in this world, and I am a religious person. We don't talk about it, but I am a very religious person, and I believe that if you're religious, it is your path. It's not my business. It's not anybody's business. It's about self improvement. But what happens in this movie is like it's a fundamental thing of in India, it's a culture where it's like, oh, I'm praying to God. I'm fearful of God to the point where this fear is like, if I do this, then I'll do it. The word is to when it's a conjunction, right? Where it's like and if it's if and only if you help me pass this test, then I'll do this. If you help me do this, then I'll do this. It's like just do it. If you really feel that way, if you have a relationship with anybody, if you love anybody in this world, you will understand that relationship. It's an intellectual love. And then you'll just do whatever you're doing in the first place, right?
That's a really good call out because, like, yeah, you're right. His relationship with his deity is transactional. That he like
Yeah,
if and
but
only
it's
if.
not just him. It's a culture around the world where it's like it's a culture of fear.
Yeah,
And it's like if you say intellectual love towards God, then people that sounds like almost a paradox to some people. I think for me, that is where it starts. It starts with if you okay, think about it, Zach. This is a life lessons for anybody, which we're not preaching life lessons in the first place. But if you want to get to an emotional place with anything, it comes through intellect. If I feel the emotions of this movie, is because of my intellect. You have to think about things before anything else. And I hope that the people out there, because we live in a very crazy time where that seems to not be the norm, and it's something where it's like our relationships in our life should not be dictated by fear, because this whole movie is about that, right? Farhan, my favorite shot of the movie now is Farhan taking off all the rings and putting them in a bedpan. And because if you talk to any like religious person, they'll be like, whoa, that is so disrespectful. No, it's not. That's an understanding that he learned the hard way, that he it's not about fear. All he says like during the interview, because this is one of my dialogues too, is that you know, I learned that it's not about the fear. It's just I should be grateful for this presence that I have. And it goes into the whole point of, the suicide theme, that we all have a purpose in life, whether we might not see it at the current moment or not. And we all should value the lives that we have, and we should try to do something with it. And it doesn't mean the solution is never to take your own life. And that's why it's not, it's Raju, it's not Farhan, it's not Rancho that jumps off the building. It's the guy who believes in God, the guy that is the most fearful, because that is kind of the norm in our world right now, that it's fear. If you fear something, you're not going to have a willing or good relationship with it, whether it's God, whether it's your wife, whether it's your friends. It should be out of love, it should be out of empathy, it should be out of respect and understanding. And it's like, oddly, I feel like an almost an emotional like through line to like Interstellar or like Remember the Titans, because I think, like you said, it's about like you can keep your job. I'm going to keep my attitude.
yeah,
And we should all live with that level of confidence that if we believe in ourselves, if we believe in, our morals, our values, then how you saw how calm he was. Like you can tell the entire movie that man is so stressed out, and by the end of the movie, that is like one of the calmest, one of the best
yeah,
performances I've seen,
yeah.
because he's just like, like I have this understanding, like I don't have to worry about it, like I'll figure it out. And from going from stressed out of his mind to I'll figure it out is like one of the greatest things I've seen.
The other one that I have for dialogues is children achieve excellence because then success will chase you. The reason I put that on there is because you.
Wait, no, 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 hold on,
Yeah,
run that back. I didn't hear that.
okay, it's
Say it again,
children.
because everybody needs to hear
Yeah,
that again.
children achieve excellence because then success will chase you. The reason I'm saying this quote is because Vikash says this about 50 times a week to me. Where he's basically like, where he says, if you put in the good work, success will find you. You will be successful if you put in the work, if you put in the time, if you make something good, you will find that's his mindset. This is Vikash's mindset. So I just want to call it out that this movie specifically says that same thing that I know you believe.
And it's my philosophy is the same. It's always been that philosophy even before I saw the movie, but it's like it's something where it's like if you see those things in movies, it's gratifying. And it's not just one movie. I think Rajkumar Hirani personally believes this himself too, because it's not just this movie that concept is in. and he tackles it in his first two movies. The movie he made after this is literally Amir Khan, like the guy that plays Rancho. He literally is an alien that comes to Earth, and then he's searching for religion, and he's like trying to figure out things about religion. It's such an interesting movie. It's called PK, but this movie very much it lines up with my philosophy. You're right about that, because you know what the mind killer is, right? We got to throw it back to Dune. Fear
Fear
is
is
the
the
mind
mind
killer,
killer. Yeah.
and you can't fear like if you have. See. I think we are incredibly blessed enough to where we might be able to chase curiosity because some people it's fight or die. Not fighting, but it's like you literally it's either you make that paycheck or you can't live your life, and I'm just like, yeah, that might be the situation, but if we need to fight for something better, we should fight for something better if we have the chance.
No, I think it's a good mindset too, and it's a mindset I struggle with having all the time because
That's why I
I,
tell you.
I'm always fearful of like, okay, are we doing this? But like, who's gonna find this? Who's gonna watch this? Who's gonna care? And but you're right that the best artists in the world aren't ever making art out of the idea of wanting to be successful. I mean, or maybe they want to be successful, but like the best directors and the best artists, when they first start making their work, they know no one's going to see it, but they believe if they make good work, it will find its way to be seen and for it to be successful in the world. So yeah,
One of
it's a hard
I'm
mindset to
learning,
have, though. It's not an easy
and
one,
I'm
but
learning.
yeah, and it's
I'm still learning
something we're all still learning
because
from.
for me it's like I'm learning from people where it's like the most successful person, whatever way you define success, but I think any success comes with delusion
Yeah,
that the only way you're going to get there is if you stop listening to those fearful voices, and you have to be delusional to some extent,
yeah.
because I it's hard for me to be delusional too. Like I like it sounds I think anything where it's like you're trying to improve yourself, you're trying to get to greatness, it sounds stupid.
Well,
I think like it because it's like, like you
yeah.
said, it's the square and the circle.
Well, what
Where it's like if you're trying to be a circle in a square world, you're gonna be people are gonna look at you
well, what
crazy.
does any
You're gonna be
artist do that makes them that you have to have irrational confidence and that
yes,
as an artist because what you're doing as
just as anything,
with
honestly.
any real piece of art, you're telling the world like I have something to tell the world and they need to hear it. That is what any piece of art boils down to. And to be able to say something like that, you have to have a lot of irrational confidence in the fact that you have something unique and necessary for the world to hear.
Yeah. And there's people out there, and I this is another reminder I talk about too, where it's like you see the people, the people and their beliefs that are actually doing this sort of work.
Well, this is what
Not
this
you,
podcast is.
you it,
It's what this it's
yeah,
irrational. It's us having irrational confidence that we have something, to share to the world.
something new to
We have
say.
something new to
Yeah.
say. That's all this is. This is what our project is here. So all I'm saying is like this just quote really gets down to what artistry is, what success is, what's the point of excellence basically. Because again, it's hard to forget that, when I'm doing this, I'm like, man, is anybody going to see this? But that's not the point. That comes later. The point is, we need to do this in a way to
Need
achieve
to put in the
excellence.
work.
Yeah, we need to put in the work. We need
Yeah.
to do it well, and then eventually success will follow. And we'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Because that's the thing, it's like when okay, put it this way, if you're on the right path of life, and if you have the right understanding with you, you become unshakable. That's what happens to Raju at the end of this movie, right? He becomes unshakable. And it's hard to get to that point in life because it's like, first of all, people, whether it's a financial thing, whether it's a mental thing, where it's like you have to figure out what makes you happy, you need to be grateful, and then you also have to have a purpose. And half of us, I feel like most of us, it's like finding your purpose in life is like half the job.
Yeah.
And once you do that, then it's like chasing it, that's the easier part. It's not easy, but it's like once you know what you want to do, then you can run.
Yeah.
And it's like if you don't, and it's the same thing, right? Where it's the Forrest Gump thing where it's like if you, bro started running and he stopped running, right? Bro just kept running.
And again, yeah, just like that movie, he wasn't concerned about success. He was just I guess he wasn't really concerned about excellence either, but he just wanted there was actually that's
It just
probably a bad example of one. But, that's a bad example. But anyways, Vikash, what were your dialogues? What stuck out to you in
So
this movie?
the keep your job, I'll keep your attitude. That was definitely the big one for me. But the other one that really got to me, even though I think, like you said, the whole movie gets to me,
Yeah.
it's got a lot of, because it's a lot of like, me, I have a need to crack comedy. I think there's only one place on earth like in recent memory where I was like, I went there. This is like a very serious place. I'll tell you afterwards where I'm
Yeah.
talking about, where I'm like, no jokes here, is that serious. And it's very much, I think in most places in life you must crank some comedy because you're not gonna get out of here otherwise. Because if you take everything seriously in life, it's gonna kill you. And I'm not gonna name any names, but I know two individuals where one of them lives my sort of life's like mindset, and the other one is like very serious, very much virus vibes. And that person was telling the other person like, oh, like, why can't you be serious? And it's like that's the whole problem. It's like if you take all this boring stuff so seriously, you heard me. I was going off on like Jathur's character because it's like, yes, I understand it's important. You need to do that work, but it's not the end of our lives. Like if you believe that just reciting facts is like the point of life, like what are you living for? And that's I don't know. That's a whole it goes into my whole philosophy, but the same thing within that is one of the I'm gonna try to say this without crying. They're intercutting the interview at the end of the movie with the dad, with Farhan's dad. That whole not confrontation, but the whole scene with his parents, that he goes and tells them like, I've essentially wasted the last 4 years of my life and essentially all of my life to go and do something else. And his dad's like, oh, like he bought this new laptop and it's overly expensive, but he's like, oh well, my son just he's graduating college, it's something he's gonna need, and he's proud of him. And he goes to his dad and he tells him, all this, he confides with him like, this is what I want to do. And it's like, why does it matter what other people say? And this is another thing about Indian culture where it's like what matters more to people is what other people think than what they actually want. And that's another part of the delusion that is needed, that you can't think of what other people are going to say, because that is the norm in my culture. I'm telling you, there's situations where my cousin, like she's doing nothing wrong, and my aunt will get calls like, "Hey, did you know your daughter was here? Did you know your daughter was in this place doing this thing?" And my aunt is just like, "Yes." And like, mind your business, right? But that's the culture we come from. And rounding it back to his dad, one of the greatest things I've heard, which is not usually the thing, these parents will say, is return the laptop. And how much is it for one of those cameras? And, you know, people go through a lot, man. And I'm telling you, people like, I've heard the stories. People's parents are not that nice. And that's the point of this movie, is that, you should be grateful that, I'm telling you, man, it is not like that for a lot of people in life.
Yeah,
So
I totally get what you're getting at. I think for a movie about pressure, for the parents to show a level of empathy and understanding that they had a pivotal choice in that moment, to where should they continue to put the pressure on their child and call him a failure not wanting to be an engineer after 4 years of schooling, or should they actually allow him to become the person he wants to be. And that is a pivotal, we talk about the birth scene at the end is the height of the movie, but or maybe even finding, ranch. The real pivot moment of this movie is actually that smaller moment where Farhan is
and
given
it's
grace from his parents to,
yeah.
in a culture that doesn't usually allow for that level of grace, for him to be given the grace to pursue his passion.
And on top of that, what he says at the hospital, where what Rancho says to Farhan at the hospital, where he's like, you don't want to be on your hospital bed in 50 years full of regret. And this is not even
Yeah.
just an American thing, it's a thing across the world, or an Indian thing. This is very much just a philosophy for all of our lives, that it's like, yeah, you need to make a paycheck, you need to be able to sustain your life, but also try to do these things, try to pursue what makes you actually happy, because that might sustain your life too.
Yeah.
And it's like you don't want to live with that regret, because fear is the mind killer, but regret is a bigger mind killer for anything, right? Because if you sit for anybody, if you sit there and think about it, you can kill yourself with regret.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was talking to somebody, and they're like, "Oh, I regret doing this. I regret doing this." I'm like, don't, no," because I was like, I fall into the same trap. I'm like, if you think about this stuff, it'll kill you. Just what has happened is happened, and you gotta think about it to the point where you need to reflect and understand why it happened and learn from the lesson.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to learn from other people's bad behavior. It is harder to learn from our own, with those regrets. But it's like you don't want that to kill you. And that's the whole point of the movie is like you don't want it like try to be bold, try to do something, try to be curious. And this movie, it very much is the happier movie because it's like the movie knows that the culture is not this way and it's trying to provide a vision for people.
Yeah.
And there's actually an actress, I think Kiera Advani. I'm not familiar with her work. I don't watch a lot of, Bollywood nowadays. I watch enough, but I don't watch a lot. But she was saying, the only reason I was able to become an actress was because of this scene. And it's like, you see the effect. And it's like, that's a crazy effect to say that, this scene in a movie helped me pursue my dreams and I was able to become successful from it. You know, that's crazy. All is well. Layla for this movie. I don't know what your Layla is for this movie, but the best needle dropper used to score in Three Idiots. What is it for you?
All is well.
All,
All is.
all is well. Not
I'm
all
not.
is well.
Don't make me do the
All is
accent,
well.
buddy. Don't make me. Don't
No,
make
no,
me
no.
do the
No,
accent.
no. Literally, if you look at the name of this song, it's AALIZZ. Well,
Yeah.
it is. But
No.
it's like that's the thing about English
Yeah.
is that we all have English in America that we're like, oh, speak American. No, this is like the I love the cultural intonations of like, whether it's, someone, Filipino talking English or it's like, an Indian talking English. Like it comes into my language just because, the pronunciations that I hear from my parents and, from my people. But the Layla, what is it for you?
It's all as well. Like that. That's it. I don't have a lot of experience with Bollywood movie songs, obviously, but that one is just a banger. It's been in my head when I was doing my outline. I had it playing. Like that's just the one that stuck with me after we were done watching the film.
And this is one song where it's like, or so there's a whole soundtrack for this movie is atypical. This movie is only 5 songs, and the soundtrack wasn't something where it's like, just like automatically a success because they usually drop these things before the movie for promo. And for anybody listening, if you don't know, when it comes to Bollywood, when it comes to India in general, the music industry has mainly, historically just been, you listen to songs from movies. I listen to a lot of songs from movies. Now we're at a point where we're slowly getting artists in India, just making their own music. But even then, it's not an easy route because, like, they don't get Spotify, deals or stuff like that. They don't get, streams, but that's a whole other thing. But all is well. And all the songs from this movie, they're very emotional because it's like the story of the movie is emotional. And it's like once you listen to the song, then you remember the movie. And it's like it goes both ways in the sense of it's good for the movie, but it's also good for the song. And it's like these are songs that I still listen to all the time from this movie in general. And All Is Well is one of the best ones because it's like no matter what rut you in, if you listen to this song, you're gonna feel a little bit better.
Yeah. What was your choice for Layla?
I went with 3 of the 5 songs. Obviously, All Is Well is the first one. I just want to say the opening title song, Beti Hawa Sa Tao, meaning that he was lost in the wind essentially, and it's epic, it's emotional, it's beautiful. Where it's like full stop, it's my favorite opening title song period because it perfectly encapsulates what you're talking about. It's like that mythic proportion of like, who is Rancho, why are we going to find him? We have, and it kind of gives you a little bit of into the story of like, who is this guy, and we have to go find this friend that we've lost. And it's beautiful. It's a very simple song compared to a lot of Bollywood songs, but it is beautiful. And the main like needle drop Layla that I have from this watch was Jane Nahi Denge Tujhe, meaning Literally, it means like, I'm not gonna let you go, essentially. And it is the song that plays through the whole scene of Raju after, he jumps out of Virus's window, and they're trying to save his life, and then they're trying to get him out of the coma. They're trying to get him back to normal, quote unquote. And it's like, the main thing is, one of the main, I don't know, I've learned a lot of lessons in life. One of them is about showing up. And if you love people, you show up for them. And this whole movie, this whole scene is them showing up for their friend. And it's like, it's not about showing up. You can go and party all night, but that doesn't matter. When the going gets tough, you got to show up. And that's what they do for his friend. And they try everything possible. And it's like I said, there's no solution in this world where, killing yourself is the answer, because you should always find people in your life where it's like, you're not gonna, they're not gonna let you go.
Unless you're in a
And I
saw
don't,
trap, then that's okay. That's okay.
wait, what? What, you're what?
Unless you're in a jigsaw trap, then that's okay.
Jigsaw is
That's
different.
that's
Okay, we're
that's
not
the
talking
only
about
time
Saw.
it's the answer sometimes.
There ain't no way out. There's no way out. There's no way out. See, that's what I'm talking about. Like, even when we're talking about the most serious thing, we need to make jokes. That's what the whole point of this movie is. And it's like, that's the one part of that, and then the whole interview part, like the the whole scene with the baby. Those are the parts of the movie where there's just dead serious, and it gets so emotional, and that's why this movie works. This is
Yeah.
why people keep coming back to it. And it's like, it's about the friendship, it's about all the relationships in your life, and it shows a lot of different things, but it all comes back to, you need to care for the people in your life. And it's like, reach out to people, you never know what's going on with them. And it's just like you said, there's a point in the movie where Zach was like, oh, this movie's tackling mental health. I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the point of the movie. And as you know, as Indians, the culture doesn't really prescribe to mental health conversations, but this very much is a mental health conversation. And for Indians specifically, when very religious people, but they don't want to talk about religion, even though there's a latitude in between those two conversations that they don't want to have, but I very much believe in. But off of that, Zach, when it came to this movie, everyone is lip syncing. What did you think of it? Because this is your first lip sync movie.
Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, I guess it makes sense because doing it live would have been tough, right?
No,
But
no,
were
no.
they
I'm
not
saying
actually
no, no, no,
singing
not
at
live.
all?
No one sings. No one sings.
Oh.
These are like professional singers. Like,
Oh,
one of the singers on this is like Sonu Nigam.
is that
This
normal?
man, that's normal. And it's
Okay.
like, everyone, these are the art, like all the artists that do that, they know them. Like,
That's so
if you go on
interesting because
if you go
that's
on my Spotify, my number one person is Kishore Kumar, right? Because there's so many different movies that he made songs for, so many different actors. But it's like, I listen to those songs because
well,
of him.
that's so interesting because compared to like American musicals, it's always like a big deal that the people who are in the movie are actually doing the ones singing. You know, you think of like La
Yeah.
La Land, Les Mis, Wicked recently. Like it was very so it's normal for Indian movies that there's a musical scene, which I assume most movies have. It's not normal for the main actors to be doing the singing.
No.
Okay.
You have your playback singers, and then they have the songs recorded, and then they have them on set, and they're just playing them back,
Oh,
and you're
okay.
miming it. But
Interesting.
that's the thing. Some of these people, they like, I'm talking about Kishore Kumar. This man's voice is so good to the point where he's like, oh, I'm doing playback for Amitabh Bachchan. If anybody knows Bollywood, one of the biggest actors, he's done a lot of playback for him. But it's like, if he goes to Rajesh Khanna, if he goes to a different actor, then it's a different register in his voice. He might pick it up a little bit. He might come down a little bit. The way he's talking is completely different. And it's like, if he knows him, he plays it. And that's the crazy part about the talent of these playback singers. It's impressive work, but it's like, it's the culture there. It's not like, I feel like if America embraced it, it would actually be pretty interesting, because it's like, Ryan Gosling can sing, but it's like, I don't. I was about to say Coleman Domingo as a joke, but there's some people out here who can't sing, but they're great actors.
Like,
Harrison Ford can't
hey,
sing, but
Russell
I would love
Crowe
to see
can't
Harrison.
sing, but he was in Les Mis,
He made
right?
it work. He made it work.
You
But
know?
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, playback, it's not a bad thing. And it's something
Yeah.
where, if you watch these movies, it is actually fantastic. I'm going to send you some of the stuff. I'm going to send you a lot of these songs where you can just put them on, and you'll be like, bro, I don't know what's going on, but this is like the framing. You were talking about the framing and all that. When it comes to the music, at least my favorite like songs, if you go on YouTube for anybody listening, if you go and just type in Bollywood songs, they will just have all the songs on there, and you'll see they have 100 million views, billion view, literally billion views, like because people watch the songs over and over. Some nights when I don't even want to watch a movie, you know how you rewatch scenes, I rewatch songs,
Hmm.
and I'm just sitting there like these songs, because the some of the visuals are actually quite fantastic nowadays, less so, but like some of these songs, they look awesome. Like All Is Well is probably the best shot song of this movie.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I'll out Zach for real quick. His letterbox review was that, he saw two musicals this year, and this is the better one because the visualization for this song, like the
Two
colors
new
of
musicals I haven't seen before. Yeah.
the visuals are fantastic for this movie, and it's not, like you said, it's not blowing anybody's minds, but the colors are, they're there.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But let's get on to the hot, juicy one. Who should have been in this movie? Let's recast a role for this Indian Bollywood movie. I assume we're going American because that's what I did. Because I don't know enough Indian actors
If
for
you
this.
don't, then I definitely don't. Yeah, I don't have a large knowledge bank of Indian actors, and some of the actors that I probably would have thought were Indian end up not actually being from India. So instead of me just trying to figure it out and then accidentally just being really racist with it, I'm just going to do an American version of it.
Accidentally, I thought you were actually racist.
But not against Indians.
Oh, okay, okay, understood.
Uh, it's like
Bro,
what
you
is
about to
it?
get canceled?
What is it? The Austin Powers 3 where he's like, I have no tolerance for people who are intolerant and the Dutch.
Just the Dutch.
Okay, so I went ahead and I recasted most of the main cast here. I know I usually only do one person, but I went all the way through. Okay. So my version of Rancho would be Tony Revolori from Grand Budapest Hotel and the Spider-Man movies, the new Spider-Man movies. I think he I think he's underutilized actually in a lot of his more recent work, and I think he could
Yeah.
do pretty good of doing that role.
They don't
For
give him enough credit. He was good in that. He was good in Dope.
Yeah,
He's good in
so
Spider-Man. He's one of the best parts of Spider-Man,
I
honestly.
I think he has a lot more to him, and he just isn't getting roles for some reason. So I think he would do a good job as the lead. Anyways,
I'm showing the camera my skin color because
yeah.
brown people.
Well,
Literally, Mina Masood, the man who played Aladdin, can't find roles. Man led $1 billion movie, and they won't cast him and stuff. How does that work,
so for Raju, put R.J. Clyer as the cast.
bro?
You would remember
RJ,
him from
RJ,
the Power Rangers, the 2017 one, and also
me
Me,
Earl,
Earl, and the Dying Girl.
Harder
He's
They
a
Fall.
really, really
He's so good in Harder They
interesting.
Fall,
Yeah, he's really interesting actor. He can actually play characters who are a little bit more odd, which is what
yeah.
Raju is. And I think he'd be an interesting version of Raju. For Farhan, I just let a little country twang out there. A little for Farhan. He's probably too famous to be a side character at this point, but Will Poulter from We're the Millers, Detroit, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, he still can actually pull back probably the young college kid look still. He probably has to get a little
Bro,
less
if
buff,
Amir Khan was
but yeah.
44,
Yeah. Well, because
then
I didn't know that before, so I was trying to keep everybody younger. But yeah, Will Poulter would be able to do it. Okay. So for Virus, I would go with
bro, here we go.
Himesh Patel. You know him from
Bro,
Station
bro,
11.
why you think he could do that?
I think he could do it. I think he would be a little
Because he
younger than
just
what
had
Virus is, but he has that in Station 11, he plays this kind of a lot of his character is kind of a pissy, irritated guy.
yeah,
And I think he could do a version of Virus with that same energy, even if he's a bit younger than what the character is.
because
He's
he's
funny,
funny
dude.
in Tenet.
Yeah.
He's Yesterday, he has the vibes, and I do love his work, so
I think he
at
could
least we got
do,
one brown
yeah,
boy.
yeah, and yeah, I can't just only do white people in the movie. Well, no, I actually am not. I'm actually pat myself on the back, I guess, for diversity. So I would do Silencer, the little annoying guy who's chasing them half the movie. I would replace him with Christopher Mintz-Platz, who's McLovin in Superbad. I
Yes,
told you
sir.
immediately when we started watching that I was like, this guy reminds me so much of McLovin from Superbad. The whole energy, the whole like just irrational confidence, and just being like this kind of annoying guy. So that makes sense to me. And then the final recast for Pia, I would go with Janelle Monáe. You know her as she's
Oh,
a popular singer, but she's also
oh,
was in Hidden Figures
okay.
and Knives Out. I think her as that
She's in
love in
Moonlight. She's
yeah,
she's
she would be a really interesting,
stunning woman.
yeah, interesting love interest, and she actually can sing out of all these people that I have on here. She's probably the only one. So that's my total American quote unquote, American Hollywood, I would say, recast of this movie. What do you got going on?
So I okay. So it was a bit hard. I went really wonky with mine.
Okay.
I didn't recast Chatur, I didn't recast Silencer, even though it probably should have. But so for the first person for Farhan, I went with Justice Smith, who is in this year he was in all
I almost went that route. I almost did that.
I
Yeah.
saw the TV Glow, he's in some other stuff, but
He's
like
got that
I've
same
been
kind of energy. Yeah.
yeah. He's always been interesting and he has the big budget stuff he's done, but all of his like coming of age movies and all that sort of stuff he does is always what always kept me like compelled within him. So I do love him.
He's a pretty unique actor, and I actually think he's gonna age pretty well. I think
Oh yeah,
he's too young looking still, so he keeps getting a lot of younger parts, but I think once he starts to get a little bit older and can grow out of those, I think he's gonna be a very interesting actor. He has a very interesting presence in his movies.
100%. And so that's one down. Second one, I would do what's his name? So the other person that I went with for Farhan, wait, I said Farhan or no? So
Mm,
for Raju,
yeah.
the one I went with was Dominic Sessa. This might be some holdovers bias,
Oh,
but
yeah, yeah.
I just rewatched Holdovers and I was like, oh, he could definitely do this. He hasn't had a lot of time to flex anything yet, but he would be really exciting in that sort of role where it's like he's not the lead, but he can pack the juice in where he needs
Yeah,
to. And I had to go with Mike Faced for Rancho.
yeah.
I feel like he's one of the few young actors we've got. You said Will Poulter. I don't know if he could do it, but I
No,
think Mike
Rancho
Faced
no,
is
no,
the
I
guy.
had Tony Revolori for Rancho.
Oh yeah, Revelori is great.
I almost went Tom Holland and kind of the same idea what you're thinking of. I just wasn't sure if he could pull off if he's almost
I
too movie star-ish to be able to pull it off.
it's the okay, so he has the boyish charm,
Yeah.
but I think he could pull it off.
That's
Him
that's the
and
thing, the
Mike could both
boyish
pull it off.
charm is part of it. It's why I did Tony
Yeah,
Revolori. It's why I think Mike Feist works for you. There is a
yeah,
boyish charm, even though he's 44 or whatever you said when he made this. Just boyish charm to his performance.
yeah. No, he could juice that. No,
Yeah.
I would love Tom Holland in that. Actually, he'd actually be really good in that. But Mike, he's got the drama part of it. But
Yeah.
I think this would just be a purely fun role for him.
Oh, yeah.
And seeing him in Challengers this year and the sort of relationship that he's pulling off, even with the serious and with the not comedy, but some of the more romance moments, it's so good. Uh so Pia, real quick, Zooby Dooby vibes. Elle Fanning.
I almost picked her too. I almost
Elle
picked Elle for the
because I was
role.
like,
Yeah.
Dakota has my heart, but
Yeah.
Elle is the one who would fit into this role perfectly.
She's
Just like
yeah.
slide her in. She's
She's,
perfect for it.
playing the love interest in the recent Bob Dylan movie that just came out.
Oh yeah. But for her, it's the same thing where it's like coming of age sort of story. There's a movie that her and Justice Smith made. I think it's like something like All the Bright Places. That's a
Yeah.
good movie. Not, crazy good, but really good. But she's good in those roles where it's like and Super 8, pull it back to Super 8 where she's like kind of the girl next door
Yeah.
and that sort of vibe. Like Rajkumar Hirani, he does that in his movies a bit where it's like it's kind of the girl next door and this would fall in perfectly for her. So I couldn't think of anybody for Virus.
Hmm.
The name I have written down was just off the cuff. This is the one person where I'm like, he would have been perfect for this role. There's no one else that picks up this energy. Robin Williams.
Robin Williams is almost too inspiring though. Like I don't know if you could
No, no,
I don't know
no,
if you
no.
could like
Comedy
hate
vibes.
him. You
Comedy
can't
vibe.
No, for the
He can do
comedy,
serious.
but
He can do
it's
the
his
serious.
he's too much of his Dead Poet Society
No,
character,
no, 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 no,
That's
no,
gonna be
no.
the problem.
He had it in him. He had it in him to do it, man. I'm telling you. He can pull the serious. And he would have pulled the serious and then slowly like he can do the comedy stuff too. Because it would have been a Stooges performance from him. He could have done it.
You know
Because
it,
it's either him or like John Lithgow
well,
in
I
my
was about
head.
to say like Lewis Black maybe, like someone in that
Louis,
vein,
no,
someone who
Lewis
can
Black
blow
is
up.
no. Lewis Black is too on the head because
Yeah.
Lewis Black actually would be perfect, but like the outburst, it's like we already know him for it.
Yeah.
And what Boman Irani did, which he does with all the movies that he does with Rajkumar Hirani, is that he always surprises. And
Yeah.
this is Like he plays the villain at least a couple times in his movies, but he always surprises. And this is a very surprising role
Oh,
from him.
he's
Like when
freaking
he shaves off
incredible
the
in this. Yeah.
like when he shaves off the mustache, then I'm like, oh yeah, that's him. But when he's full on virus, bro, I can't take that man seriously for my life.
Oh, no,
And
it's
the
such a
voice
funny
talking
performance.
talking like
Yeah.
this, Robin Williams would have done it up so well. Because the thing is, you need someone with that sort of energy where it's like you're supposed to be character
Well,
energy,
and even
caricature energy.
as ridiculous as a character he's playing, I definitely have worked with and met computer science professors. I know he's engineering, but whatever. I've met computer science professors who are just like spitting images of virus in this movie, like in terms of their personality and how they talk to people and the arrogance and all that.
I'm
Um,
not surprised.
it's
But
not.
that's the thing.
There's
He's
something
hitting
real
a
here.
very
Yeah,
yeah, there's a very specific vein that he's tapping into where
yeah,
you're just like, "Oh, this flows," because it's like you've seen this before.
yeah,
And it's like you need the villain. That's the thing. He's the villain of the movie, but by the end of the movie, you have to make sure that he's not the villain anymore.
yeah,
And they land the plane with that, and it is very much a casting thing.
yeah.
So Robin Williams, the GOAT, like he's one of the few actors where he's got the energy in the tank to do it. You know who actually would be a good one? Now that I think of it, Ken Jeong,
Yeah.
because he's got the crazy energy, but when he gets serious, you're like, oh crap. Because I don't know, you haven't seen him as Ben Chang, but you've seen him in The Hangover, among other things,
Yeah,
and
that's yeah.
he has the seriousness, but he also has that crazy energy, and he's kind of a character, like character in and of himself. So he would actually be great as Virus
You
if we had
know
to go with a modern, like living person.
I'm thinking more about it. I think also, like, a younger, like, Joe Pesci probably could have done it, you know? I if you
Pesci
can
would have been good.
he would
Pesci
have
would have
been
been good.
different, but it would've been good. I think he's probably
It
too
would have been
young.
more Goodfellas, but it would be a good thing.
He's probably too young right now, but Glenn Howerton probably in, like, 10 years also nails this part.
Yeah, because
Anyone that
he's
can
an
do
aging bio.
that rage, because
Yeah,
really, I mean, there's a level of,
no,
like,
no,
rage
it's
that
about doing the rage,
but
but
a
you also
funny
have to be
version of it.
charismatic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
charismatic, a
exactly.
funnier version of the Ray, and that's why I'm thinking those guys specifically who can do the fun because it's like, oh, like the Al Pacino, and obviously he's too old, but the Al Pacino rage doesn't work. But like
No,
that,
no.
yeah, but the funny
Actually,
rage
if
works. Yeah,
Duncan Cheeto
that's
rage
true.
might work.
Maybe that's a bad example. Like, Daniel Day-Lewis makes no sense, obviously, but like, yeah, that Joe Pesci type of rage that's funny, that makes sense here. That's funny. Even Brian Cox, someone like him, would make a lot of sense in this
Brian,
one,
so if Brian Cox didn't take him seriously, because
Yeah,
some of the thing about like Bollywood roles, especially these sorts of movies, is that you can't take yourself seriously. You have
yeah,
to do serious stuff without being serious at the same time. It's a very, very serious, like a very specific line to toe, and they do it well. They do it well.
yeah. This is my
That's
favorite
why it's
character
like
to think of
some
recaps for.
yeah, yeah. Virus is that dude because Boman Irani is like very much like character actor.
Oh,
So it's like
I know we
it's always
say his
awesome.
name a lot, but like a Philip Seymour
Open the
Hoffman,
bingo.
like a prime Philip Seymour Hoffman over here would just eat up
Bro,
oh man, would just eat it up.
no, but think about it. Like he like Along Came Polly plus like Mission Impossible 3,
I was
where it's
thinking,
like dead serious
what's
and
the
then like stupidly
what's the Adam
hilarious.
Sandler one where he's the mattress salesman?
Wait,
Adam
who's it?
Sandler and PTA. Crazy no,
Oh, Punch Drunk Love.
Punch Drunk Love. That
I was
again,
yeah,
that
it's been
funny
so
kinda
long.
rage where he's like,
Yeah.
"Shut up, shut up, shut up,
Shut up,
shut
shut
up."
up, shut up. Yeah. When he's on the phone.
Just imagine him
The,
doing that in the
but
classroom to
another
Rancho, and
thing,
so when he starts trying to do his crap, "Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up."
and there's a physical comedy too, right? Because there's a couple points where he just has to like go pummel a kid, right?
Oh, yeah, and Virus, that's one of the things that the actor does in this movie is that he just
He's
straight up
physical.
hits kids, like, multiple times in the
But
movie and
that's the
slaps them,
culture
and
in India, bro.
it's so funny. It's just he
Yeah,
walks up
it's
to them
funny.
and just hits them. It was cracking me up every time he does that in the movie. You're right, it's a physical performance as well as,
But
like, a
that's
vocal
the
one.
what do you call it? It's a taste of like of Bollywood comedy though,
Yeah.
because some of my favorite Bollywood comedies, there's points in the movie where some dude is just getting beat the crap out of him, and you're
Well,
just laughing.
it's one thing I think I've forgotten about, but there's nothing funnier than in a movie when someone just walks up and just, like, slaps someone or hits them or something, like,
And
scary
how many times does that
uh,
happen in this movie? Right
like,
at the end of the movie,
the main girl from Scary Movie, how, like, half the movie, she's
Anna
just getting, like
Faris.
yeah, Anna Faris, she's just getting hit and punched and over the top, just beat up, and it's just stupid, but it's really that's like him when every time he slaps someone in this movie, it just I can't help but laugh.
It's the genius of it. That's the thing. It's like if you have, I think universal comedy is very hard to do, and I think this, I think the comedy in this lands because it is a bit universal in that sense. Because it's like, yeah, you have jokes, but then you have the physical comedy, and physical comedy usually comes through pretty
Yeah.
well. So that being said, let's get into something serious. Soapbox takes. What is your soapbox take? Get up on it. Let me hear what you got today.
Yeah. So this is going to be kind of a similar one I've done in the past, but I think America needs to continue to embrace earnest movies again that maybe are
Yeah.
a bit silly. I think Forrest Gump now gets a lot of crap for it being too earnest of a movie.
Certain people, and I
Yeah, by
think
certain
the
people.
problem, it's a
Eh, I,
reflection of our culture
I
now
think there
because
needs
it's
to be
going
an
the wrong
I
way.
think there needs to be an openness to watching a movie that has a different lens on how to show the world, and I think, for instance, a movie that or a show that's done this recently actually was Ted Lasso, which kind of got that sort of
Same
earnestness,
vibe.
that sort of
Yeah.
vibe of like, bettering yourself, of being very wearing your emotions on your sleeve, maybe being a bit silly at times. And even a movie like or even a show like that, it had its detractors, even though it was popular. But I think it shows a show like that shows that there is room to make these type of earnest type of movies and shows in
There's a
America
need.
still, and there's a need. Yeah, that's probably a
There's a
better
need.
way. There's a need, and I would like to see more of it because like this movie just reminded me of what watching one of those movies are like. You don't have to take it fully seriously. It doesn't need to be a grounded story. It just needs to make sense in its own world, which it does.
Remember the Titans. Same
Yeah,
thing,
and that
man.
was the one I think we talked about it on, at least off camera and probably on camera, is that those types of movies they're the bread and butter of cinema, honestly. If you look in the history of cinema, that's the type of movies that were made the most with the with public appeal. It's only recently as movies are more expected to be more grounded, but even like, and
More grounded and more
this is my
serious.
real soapbox actually, and I was thinking of this today. People will make fun of Bollywood movies or movies from other cultures of how different their storytelling is. People make fun of Bollywood movies for its level of storytelling and what it tells. But what is sillier about Three Idiots that's not silly about one of our Marvel movies? Marvel movies ridiculous. It's a ridiculous movie. Like what the plot and every day just because it's based on comic books
Yep.
doesn't make it not ridiculous. So you can't look at Three Idiots and say that's a ridiculous movie, or Bollywood movies are ridiculous when yeah, there's not singing and dancing in a Marvel movie, but it's just as kind of, to another person that's just as weird or it's just as different.
And if you look at the action movies of India, they're
Yeah.
just as crazy as Marvel movies because
Oh,
it's the same energy.
yeah, you
It's
can't
just
say
this is using
RRR
the
is ridiculous and then like John Wick, there's a similar level of energy there.
100%. And I love both.
Yeah. No, and I'm
I
not
love the
saying
crap
yeah,
out of
I
both.
and I enjoy both, like, but that's yeah, that's kinda just yeah, I think it's a you I it just in general, I see people go into movies so often with closed minds with saying, "This okay, it didn't do this, so I don't like it. It's not what I
Yeah.
expected, so I don't like it." I think it's better to always go into a movie and try to say, "What is the director trying to do here?" Try to not bring your own interpretation into it ahead of time, but to go in with the open mind and say, "Okay, what is the director of Three Idiots trying to do here?"
You have to go into movies with the Rancho energy,
Yeah.
meaning that I'm not here at the movie to learn the facets of this box that we
Yeah.
all know. We can just, if you want the classic thing that people always say, like screenwriters say, is that there's like 8 stories and or like 30 stories, and every single story that can be told has been told. Is
Yeah.
just you have to find your way into telling those stories.
Yeah.
And if you suspend that belief of like, I'm not here for like, yes, story matters, story is always key, but the things that surprise you, the things that you actually want to see are things that you might not expect. So it's like leave your expectations at the house, bring your curiosity. And if you see that with any movie, you will find yourself surprised or find yourself valuing something within a movie, right? Because you never know what you're gonna get. And it's like Three Idiots. Like I told you, it's like when we're getting into the third act, whenever they get all three of them get expelled essentially, and they're going outside, and then it's pouring rain, and I'm like, bro, you don't know what's about to happen. And it's like you want to be surprised with those
Yeah.
sorts of moments, and they take it there. It goes crazy, right? Just like the third act of a Marvel movie, but
Yeah.
they bring it back home emotionally, and it hits so well. So it's like, no, I 100% understand what you're saying.
What's your favorite, or not, sorry, what's your soapbox for this movie?
So Amir Khan, so the guy, like I said, Rancho, he is a producer himself at this point. He's very smart. He's one of the shining lights of Bollywood at this moment, and he's at a point where he has quit acting for the last, I guess, couple years, and he's just like, I'm gonna live life, and then I'll go back to acting later. And his wife, his ex-wife, Kiran Rao, like we were just talking about before, Lapata Ladies, it's on Netflix. She just directed a movie, a great one of the best movies from India this year. And it's a very specific movie she made, but he also made one recently called Lal Chadda Singh, which you don't know the name, but that is the remake that he made, and he stars in as Forrest Gump. Zach, they've remade Forrest Gump for India in that lens, and it works. It's not as great as Forrest Gump by any means, but it is not. It's not a bad movie, and
So
it's like if you're,
are they running
go ahead.
through parts of Indian history with that Forrest
Yeah,
Gump? Like, is it
yeah,
like
yeah,
what
and he's
what
sitting,
era? What era are we talking about here?
or same thing as whatever Forrest Gump,
Does he get to
but
meet
it's like
Gandhi in it?
you got to watch the movie to figure that out. You got to watch the
Is it
movie to
is
figure
it
that out.
uh is it Ben Kingsley? Is he in it?
No. No, 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 no. No, they weren't that good. They actually have Shah Rukh Khan as a what do you call it? As a cameo, and
That's
he's
pretty.
supposed it's like the 90s, and it's like Shah Rukh Khan is like one of the biggest actors, and he has this
Yeah,
pose that he does with his hands, and it's like, oh, the pose comes from this guy. Like
yeah,
he's just like around on a roof with him, and then like he just does this, so the kid copies him, and then that kid becomes like the biggest star in Bollywood right now
yeah.
somehow.
That's
But
funny.
my whole point is that yeah, they did Forrest Gump again. They made Lal Chida sing. Even Kareena Kapoor, the girl that plays Pia, she's
Yeah.
in the movie as Robin Wright's character.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
the movie is good. It's not great because it doesn't obviously compare to Forrest Gump. But the thing is that I think that Amir Khan already made his Forrest Gump with Three Idiots, because the energy that you want about Forrest Gump is what Three Idiots is. It's that earnest energy, and it's
That
like it's the
Spielbergian
energy.
Zemeckis energy.
It and it's like it's a heartfelt, emotional
Yeah,
thing, but it's not like it's not going over the top, but it's also not going over preachy, because some of these movies, then you just turn into like a God's Not Dead, right?
yeah,
And it's like, what is your intention with the movie? Are you trying to make a good movie in the first place? Or are you trying to do something else? And it's like Rajkumar Hirani, he hit the mark with Three Idiots, and I
yeah,
think for me, it might be better than Forrest Gump. And I love Forrest Gump, right? We live in a place where it's blasphemous to say otherwise,
yeah,
but like seriously, like it is that level of emotion to me where it's like, oh, like you tell this grand epic story, but it's like it ultimately comes back to just the story about, one person or three people, and it's a beautiful story. And
yeah.
I think Amir Khan should make more stories like that. I think he always makes emotional stories. He's definitely Dungle, which you haven't heard of. It's a movie where he plays a dad to three female wrestlers and to his daughters, and that movie was like one of the biggest movies that year. Like it outgrossed Guardians of the Galaxy 2 in China. Like it was a big hit, and he makes compelling movies. It's just they should let him keep making these movies, because I think he's gonna hit the sauce again at some point. And I'm glad that he made Three Idiots, because this movie is, it is top class for me as to like, the cinema that we need to have out there. Like you said, we need more movies like this.
Well, we should go into the next category and talk a little. I think it's relevant to what you're talking about, Amir Khan and his relevance to Indian society, but also that he's never been recognized at an American award.
In 2000, so this is a whole thing where it's like India submits movies. So every single country in the world gets to submit a movie to the Academy Awards for Best International Feature. We talked about it a bit with RRR, where They didn't submit that movie. They submit a different movie that was from like my side of India. It's a Gujarati movie, and the thing is that India, you can't put India in a box. India is not just one type of movie. It is these brazen, over bloated, big blockbuster type movies, but it's also the smaller pieces of cinema that come from all across the country, intimate stories, very much art house independent movies. And it feels like there's too much of a divide. So yeah, they didn't even submit this movie the year that
No,
it came out.
that's what I was gonna say for the Oscars. I've seen it submitted into the Oscars, and I don't see it winning an American award for any other type of American ceremony. So it's just
I think the year was 2000. There's a movie, or excuse me, 2001. There's a movie called Lagan, where it's about a village. It's a movie about cricket. It's a sports movie, but it's also a movie about this village. It's a love movie. It's a romance. It's like I told you, it's a lot of things in one. But it's fundamentally a movie that's Indian versus British. And the movie, I think Lagan is, I think it's like 3 hours and 42 minutes. It's a long movie. Was it 233 minutes? It's a long movie. And Aamir Khan right now, he's been out on press talking about this whole situation because the movie that was submitted this year to the Oscars is his wife's movie. It's a movie that he's a producer on, Lapata Ladies.
so
And go
did
ahead.
did you already say the one that was nominated in its place?
No, I didn't. What was nominated in his
It
place?
looks like it was I can't tell so the way the Wikipedia article has it, let me make sure I get it
Oh,
right.
the movie. Okay, the
Yeah, it
movie that was. I got
had
it. Let me say the name. I got you.
okay.
The name of the movie is Harish Chandrachi's Factory,
Yep.
and it's essentially just a biopic, right?
Yeah, I'm bringing it up. It looks like it's a biopic of can't say the guy's name, but it's a biopic, yeah.
Yeah, and the movie's about Dada Saib Falk,
It didn't get
and
selected as a nominee for best foreign film that year, but it was
so.
India's submission.
But the thing about Falk, like Dada Saib, was that he's like essentially the father of Indian cinema, right? So it's like you're making a movie, not like Babylon, much cleaner, but that
Yeah.
sort of movie where it's like a biopic, and it's like it's supposed to be something that they think that the Oscars are going to play to, and it didn't play to them, obviously, compared to whatever else was there. And Amir Khan is one of the few people and the other producer on this movie where they have their movies always in the cut or being submitted because he is a big name. Like Amir Khan is a very big name. The movie in 2008 that was actually submitted, Tara Zameen which is like Stars on Earth. That's the whatever the comparison. Very much same thing. Very small movie, very intimate story about a kid who he has a very like big inner life. Like I think I don't know if he's autistic, but he has some sort of there's something about him in the movie. And Amir Khan directed the movie, and he also stars in it. He plays a teacher in the movie. He's essentially doing his Robin Williams in that movie. And he's like, and the whole point of the movie is that like, not all of our kids are the same. We should love them. And Lagan was the only one where it's like it actually got nominated for an Oscar. And I don't think a movie's been nominated for a Oscar from India since 2001, but before that it was 1988. And maybe in before that, bro, it was 1957. So it's like I think it's a different thing where it's like it's a problem of what movie is India submitting, but it's also a problem of like are the Americans watching it?
And that's not
The
unique to
Academy members.
India either, is
It's
that, like,
it's everywhere. It's
France has
everywhere.
that issue where Portrait of a Lady on Fire didn't even get it wasn't even their submission when it
And it was a very political thing. I
and
told you
it was the Parasite
about this
year,
year.
so probably was never gonna win anyways, but at least it would have been a contender, instead, you
It
got
was a contender.
and this happens a lot. RRR, like you said, was an India's submission 2 years ago when that probably would have won Best Foreign Film if not been, like, a really, really strong contender. So
And
it's
it doesn't mean the other movie that was chosen was bad,
no.
but it's just, it's showing what the political agenda is essentially. Because it is a
There
political
there there
agenda
is
for
agenda there
every
and
for
bias.
every single country is a political agenda.
Yeah,
It's not just India.
Japan has the same issue. It's just they're fortunate that Miyazaki is usually the when they have to when he puts
Yeah.
one out, they can just go with that, and they usually pick the right choice. But they have the same issue. Every country has the same issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
But
don't
I
have to
will
go more into it, but yeah,
You don't know about this, but India does have awards within them, and one of the big ones is the Filmfare Awards, and that's like the populist one.
that one keeps coming up. Yeah,
So Filmfare, this movie it won best film, best director, Best actor lost to Amitabh Bachchan. He's like one of the biggest actors of all time. He was playing, so his son is playing his father, and he's playing like a disabled kid, and it was a whole, like, it was one of those like darkest hour situations where he won that. Boman Irani won as Virus, bro. Big win. Big win.
Good.
None of the lyricism, none of the songs were nominated. Music director wasn't nominated, and lyricism wasn't even nominated for this.
In
The only
India or
nomination,
at the Oscars? You're
no,
talking about?
at the Indian, the Filmfare
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Awards. And then the only person nominated out of the music was like the woman who sung on Zooby Dooby, and she's like a massive singer too. Not that
yeah.
the other guy wasn't, but it's like, bro, like the music is fantastic in this movie. And I will, and it's not like they didn't win. They won best film, they won best story and best screenplay and best dialogue. So it's like I said, this movie was very much loved in India. And I think those have all pretty much aged well besides the music one. So
Well, speaking of aging well, I did want to ask you about the legacies then. I don't obviously have much to contribute for the legacy of this because I'm not familiar with any of these characters or actors. But
yeah.
what is the legacy of this movie in India?
So like I told you, it's been 15, almost exactly 15 years since this movie came out. And the sad truth is that things really haven't changed much. And that means that the movie is ever so relevant, right? Same thing as Interstellar. It's been 10 years. It's been 15 years for this one, but things haven't changed. They
Still
have
very
gotten,
relevant.
you know, they've got more relevant somehow. And it's like, in especially in a time where there's more people and there's less opportunities. There's a new movie that came out from the one of the writers on this movie, Vidhu Vinod Chopra. He's actually from my side of India. He's a director in his own right. He's a producer, and we were talking about it before. One of the only other movies in the top 250 for like Letterbox and for IMDb is his new movie 12th Fail. And I have yet to see the movie, which I apparently need to fix right away. But that's another movie where it's tackling the same sort of societal issue that hit a very specific nerve. And those are the sorts of stories that we need to have, and this movie will always be that, sadly. But it's this movie, I like it. I love this movie, and it's everyone in this movie who plays Farhan. He's a director now. He made a movie called Nambi, where he's in the movie. He's playing a NASA engineer, and it's a whole like science, like a it's like almost like a feel good story about about the rockets and all this stuff in India. It was actually pretty awesome. Aamir Khan, like I said, man's on top still. Like no matter what he does, the man is always trying to do something compelling artistically, and that's behind the camera and in front of the camera. And I just, he is one of the people where it's like, oh, you have him in your movie. If he actually does something, he's going to take the time and care for what you're doing. Like I said, they've remade Memento in India,
Yeah.
in the South. This is the difference. They've remade the movie in the South, and then Bollywood remade the movie. The South movie did well, but the movie that they've remade, Gujni, in Bombay, in Bollywood, that movie was like the second highest grossing movie in 2009 or 2008. So it's like, and he's the one who started it. He shaved off his head. He
Yeah.
had all these tattoos. Like there's a different, vibe to it. And I've told you this. My
Yeah.
dad likes that movie more than Memento.
I
Okay,
we,
just to say, but it is
I
his
might
truth.
have to watch it at some point just as a interesting comparison because I do love
I'm
Memento.
because it's an interesting comparison, but it's not as good as it. I
Yeah.
will say that because there's a novelty to the way that Nolan edits the movie and all that stuff, and then this one it's kind of there, but it's kind of not because it's
Yeah.
like the story propulsion is a lot more forward because Indian cinema is a lot more forward when it comes to like the mainstream stuff. So I mean, like I said, Kareena Kapoor, Boman Irani, like these people are extremely successful and extremely good at what they do. Kareena Kapoor, she recently had a one second, let me pull up the name. She just had the Buckingham Murders. That's something that I've been hearing a lot about. She has another movie, Johnny John, that was just on what do you call it, on Netflix. Incredible. These people are incredibly successful because some of them are. She is a nepo baby, and that's just kind of the culture there. So it's like I don't know. Like last person I want to talk about for legacies is Rajkumar Hirani though, because all of his movies, like the man takes his time when he makes movies, just like Nolan. But it's like you never know what he's gonna bring to you, and it's that same energy where you're like, oh, like I don't have to worry. I just got to get in the theater, sit down, and I'm gonna be surprised by what he's got to say. I will say his newest movie, it was a bit about the whole movie's about immigration, and it hits the note, it lands the plane, but it's like, it's a little here and there. But I love his work. Who's the MVP for this movie?
Yeah.
Who put the team on their back, for your opinion, that if they weren't there, then this enterprise would not be the same? Who is it for you?
It's a tough one because as much as I would be inclined to give it to the director for this movie, I want to use this category as an opportunity to give it to Boman Irani, who plays
Yeah.
Virus. Um, he is the funniest character in a really funny movie with a lot of funny characters to me, mustache and all. The over the top, very irritated kind of jerk of a teacher routine. It's instantly memorable. Like it is
Yeah.
he plays a character that is defined and is memorable and is almost like now when I see a movie and I see that type of character, I'm gonna think about Bowman Irani's Virus character. That's what I'm gonna
You're
think
gonna have
of.
to compare it to the best. You
It
got to
is.
compare it to the
If
goat.
if we redid the Oscars for this year, he would be one of my nominees and be a front runner. That's how much I enjoyed his performance in this. He is
And everyone
incredible
knows, like,
in yeah.
like, it's crazy. It is, all of it is a get up.
And his the movie would be imbalanced if he wasn't this good because you would have the kids and then kind of a okay actor for the teacher. It would have been an unbalanced movie, but with him, he carries so much weight in every scene. He's such a good villain and antagonist for the main characters. It really it gives a balance to the movie that makes it one of the a great, Bollywood movie instead of just a forgettable one, in my opinion.
And he's always been a character actor. Like, he's
Mhm.
always playing supporting roles, and he's so good at it. And I already talked about it at some point, probably last year, about a movie that he was in where he's playing a father to a kid, not a kid, but someone our age, where he's having a daughter. And in their village, the culture is that you have to have sons or else they killed the daughters, right? It's
Yeah.
about, infanticide. But it's like that very serious conversation to have. But it's like the end of that movie, spoilers, whatever. I didn't even say the name of the movie, but at the end of the movie, what happens is he's so terrible the entire movie. But the end of the movie is him with his granddaughter playing with her, and it's like, oh, the vision has changed, right? And it's the same sort of thing where it's like he can be terrible, but when he has to sell those like emotional moments where it's like you want to believe in him, you can believe those too. And it's a very specific thing to do. Because if you tell me Glenn Howerton can do that, I don't know if I can believe in the humanity of that man, even though I love his work. I'm just saying.
That's a
I'm
good
just
point.
saying.
Who's your MVP for the movie?
You know who it is. It's Rajkumar Hirani. Like,
Yeah.
put it this way. I'll tell you the story my dad always says is that his first movie, MBBS Munnabai, this movie, like I said, it's about a gangster and he's gonna essentially swindle his way into becoming a doctor.
Hmm.
But it's like his mom was like, his mom, all of her, they showed the movie. His mom was like, oh, I don't know how this is gonna go. And then all of her friends are like, your son's about to fail so badly, like it's gonna go so bad. And it's like, bro, he knew what he had, and he always has a very specific take that is, it's comedic, but it's heartfelt, but it's also serious. And it's like, to be able to tackle all that together is a very specific thing to do. And like I told you, he was an editor before this. This is all information from my dad. I didn't have to look this up. My dad talks to me about this all the time. Like, we have these conversations, but it's like, this man was an editor before. And the reason why being an editor and then going into becoming a director is so great is that he has it all in his head already. He knows where to cut, where these things work. And especially with comedy, it is so hard to do. And there's so many points in this movie where it is fantastic. You know that shot that you're talking about Silencer at the end of the movie when they get to Shimla and he's doing the pee thing, and there's that like snorri cam shot of him. It's just like, oh, it's like one of those beams of like Mr. Krabs,
Yeah, yeah.
like passing out. But
It's
it's
so
like,
that shot is so freaking funny and bizarre, man.
but you see, he like slows it down a
Mhm.
little bit. He like amps up the
Yeah.
sound and all that. It's like you see the prowess of this guy. Like, oh, he knows exactly how to pull the strings, and it's like he's one of my favorite string pullers out there.
Yeah.
Like he's like, we're the spaghetti and he's the fork, and he's just
Mm.
tuning us and he's about to just eat us. Like he like, that's the movie. And I love Rajkumar Hirani. My dad loves his work too, and it's a Rajkumar Hirani house. Like, we love to go see his movies. And I think Indians do champion him because he's got the sauce, and he ended up getting very famous from this, from all these movies,
Yeah.
and people take him seriously. And that's the thing, like, we want to take people like him seriously and make sure that they do great work. So I look forward to anything he does. So, actually, companion movies. Do you have any companion movies for this?
I mean, obviously, they're not going to be Bollywood movies because I don't have a good resource of that. But I think if you like this movie, I think, or if you like any of the movies I'm going to say, I think this is, if you like this movie super bad, I actually feel like has a similar level of comedy to it in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
And then I think, honestly, any 2000s studio comedy, just any of them, just
you got to throw in Booksmart though.
Booksmart, sure, but I'm just saying that specific 2000s, like almost that Judd Apatow, but any of those
Yeah,
2000 studio
Knocked Up,
comedies,
40-Year-Old Virgin,
honestly, Hangover, like all those,
Talladega Nights, Step
the
Brothers,
level of the type of humor in those, Step Brothers, yeah, type of humor in those,
Ron Burgundy,
yeah, because usually,
Anchorman.
honestly, a lot of those 2000 comedies involves one of the people, at least one of them are idiots, right? I mean,
Yeah,
think about it like a bunch of the
but
Paul
it's
Rudd
also
ones. He
that it's
plays an
that
idiot.
energy.
Steve
It's
Carell,
like
40-year-old version. Yeah, it's that energy, that kind of idiot energy. And I know I keep using that word, but it's the movie's Three Idiots. That
yeah,
idiot energy that's in those 2000 studio comedies is very similar to Three Idiots. So if you like any of those, go watch Three Idiots or vice versa.
and it's also the energy of, like, just the acting, where
Yeah.
it's like nowadays they want you to be subdued and, like, be mysterious and have these performances, but it's like you watch The Long Shot, which is like the only like recent that, and maybe Disaster Artist from what's his name, from Seth
Uh,
Rogen, Evan Goldberg.
James Franco. Yeah.
Yeah. But, like, yeah, it's like it's hard to find that energy in
Yeah.
Hollywood right now. So it's like, yeah, we should definitely you should watch those
Well, in
movies.
that case too, you should look at some more like golden era Hollywood movies if you like the more
Yeah.
less of the more of the over the top showy comedy.
Yeah.
Because that era especially has a lot of similar comedy to what we're seeing in Three Idiots.
Yeah. And it very much is that timeless sort of comedy, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah,
And
like
it's
anything. Charlie Chaplin's timeless. You go watch one of his movies, you still understand the humor it's communicating to you, and it's still funny. It's
yeah.
old, and it's a different type of humor. I think not all humor has. Right now, the theme for humor is either stupid fourth wall stuff or highbrow, and
Yeah.
there's no current room for that. Again, this 2000 studio comedy humor, which I think Three Idiots also has.
100%. For me, I'm gonna run down, what is it? MBBS Munabai, Lage Roho Munabai. They're the two movies he made before this. They are hilarious, but they also pack the emotion. I'm gonna throw in PK, which is his other movie. It's the 2014 movie, the movie he made after this, and it's more serious than comedy, but it does land the plane well.
Yeah,
I will say Chup Chupke, that's another comedy. There's a director, Priyadarshan. He's Bul Bulaya. He's made a lot of comedy movies where it's like, if you want to just see good comedy movies from Bollywood that actually work, those do. And it's like nowadays, even the comedy's lost in India, where it's like they can have comedy, but they don't have any substance. And it's like, even, which is crazy to say, but like a movie like 40-Year-Old Virgin or like Step Brothers or the other guys, like these movies, they might be stupid, like quote unquote stupid is not the right word to use, but they've got content, they have substance, it's
yeah.
funny, but it's like it also keeps you coming back. Like Talladega Nights, like I can't do a thematic analysis on Talladega Nights, but like I'll turn that on, like it's fun, but it's like
Well,
it keeps you coming
in
back.
a
There's
character
so many
like
movies that don't.
Rancho or Virus or Pia or Raju, they fit into Talladega Nights in turn the comedy it's trying to tell there. That's what I'm saying. It's like
That's
you
the
could almost
craziest
drop.
sentence I've heard all year.
It is, but you could
That's
drop.
the
I mean,
craziest
shoot,
sentence I've heard all year.
drop Rancho into Talladega Nights for a scene, and it doesn't make
It
it
would
makes a little
be,
bit of sense. It's not too out
yeah,
of this world, because of the style of comedy is again similar in
this
these movies.
very similar. All in all, go watch more movies. Go watch Indian movies. You might be surprised by them. And I think there's everything. Like I said, you have the classic Bollywood. This is Bollywood, but there's so much more in India. So much more to offer. Lapata Ladies, that's a different one that came out this year. All we imagine is like completely different type of movie, and people are showing love to that too. So just watch more movies. You never know what's going to surprise you. And it's like we live in a time where We might not get as many great new movies, but these, you can always go back. There's such a catalog across the world where movies will really surprise you. So that's it for this episode. 2025, we have some crazy stuff coming this year, I think, right? We
Yeah.
have some great stuff coming this
We
year.
did. There's a lot of movies we were worried about doing in our first year as we were trying to get accustomed to doing this that we're finally pulling the trigger on. So we have some really, really great stuff coming your way there next year, and probably some surprises as well. So you'll start learning more about what we're going to do as we get into the year, but it's going to be a really exciting one for us.
Yeah. Peace and love. We'll see you all in the next one.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Cinema Pursuit. Cinema Pursuit is produced by Katie Nadell, Zach Nadell, and Vikas Patel. Special thanks to Cole Cooper for the intro and outro music. You can listen to Cinema Pursuit on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you may listen to podcasts. Follow us on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram at Cinema Pursuit Podcast, Twitter or X at Cin Pursuit Pod, and check out our subreddit, r/Cinema Pursuit.